figure out if I like this new setting or not. They have this new like dual setting for the what's it called? Vertical phone setting. So it'll have me above and it'll have you below right now, or when there's multiple people, whoever's talking puts it there. I don't know if I like it all the time, but I've been trying it with some of this stuff. Bro, I have had the craziest freaking last 24 hours. My freaking last goat just gave birth last night to her fourth batch, maybe fifth batch of babies, fourth. And she's had triplets before. Well, she had triplets last night. And we were watching her all day long, and we saw that she was stomping the ground and, all by herself. Everybody was leaving her alone. And I was like, okay, cool. It'll be any minute now. And I wanted to be there in time just to make sure that they were all breathing and stuff when they're born. I get up, I look out the door, or I look out the window, and I see her turned around, with her head down. I was like, okay, I think she had it. Went out there, 3 babies. One didn't make it. The first thing I saw was the baby that didn't make it laying there, and I was like, oh. So I tried doing compressions. I do 30 compressions. Try to see if there was any fluid or anything. Not really slung, but tried to sort of get momentum and just what, like? Oh, yeah. Hey, close the door, please. Thank you. And then got let's see. So there was 2 left, right? One little white boy didn't make it. Was trying to revive him. He wasn't hot though, so we took him inside, and Nikki put the hair dryer on him to try to see if we could just get. Sometimes when the temperature shoots up, they spring back to life. It is the funniest thing in the world sometimes. So no good there, but we did grab, of the 2 that were left, there was a white and brown boy that was up drinking, still covered in stuff. And then there was a little brown girl that was extremely weak. So we took her in, and she's been in our living room for a day now. She's drank over 4 ounces of colostrum milk, She's walking around now. Hey, what's up, Braylon? Walking around now, doing really good. But yeah, so 7-month-old all day long and 1-day-old goat, both crying for milk. Last night slept with her kind of between the couch and me, just like right here. Went and slept in Dean's room for a little bit because it's right next to the living room. And Dean was out there also with her, but in the tent. And then she started crying about 5:30 in the morning. So she drank milk like a champ. And I was like, all right, she's going to be okay. She's freaking drinking now. They got to drink within a day or else it's not too cool. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. I don't know what you've been up to.
Well, so congrats on the goats, man. That's awesome. It sucks you lost one, but at least you got the other ones.
Yeah, we've had one. She had one stillborn once, but
we got my son went and got a turtle, so I had to go get turtle supplies. So we got a new pet turtle. Other than that, man, just working and living and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's a snapping turtle. Yeah. I sent you guys pictures on the WhatsApp. You can check it out. But I got like one of those filters and like a little tank and stuff like that. So he's chilling in there. Turtle food.
Hell yeah! All right, so we're waiting on Chase. We got plenty going on. We met a couple of nights ago. We talked a lot about. Oh man! So it was piggybacking off of Gnostic. Oh, she did. Yeah. Okay. I'm surprised, but she's out there. We were piggybacking off of Gnostic's episode, and they were talking about remember Cypriot came up in the episode, but I forgot already what the episode was even about that they were covering. But that led us to talking about Cyprus. Apparently, there's a shit ton of, you were saying, leftover. They were finding the opium routes, opium trade.
Yeah, so we gotta like this is a history lesson for people that don't know, and they can go look it up. But the Cypriot culture is like 11,000 years old, so it's way older than anything Greek. It's way older than anything Egyptian. It's definitely way older than anything Canaanite that we know of. We know that there's people around the same time, and they try to classify them in these groups. But the Cypriots in particular were maritime because they're on the island of Cyprus, right? And so over time, trading with other cultures, a lot of cultures passing through there, they've adopted a lot of religions. And I think the theme of tonight that I want to get across, no matter if you listen to me or anybody else, the main thing of all of these changes is reform, religious reform, historical reform, and also political reform. But a lot of that, though, there's underlying pinnings as to why that happened. One would be war, right, that caused these things. One would be internal revolt. One would be the drug narrative, right? So they brought in the drugs, and we know that because we found them physically. So when you listen to people that are all about Greek, and then they go, well, we don't know what linear A is. We don't know what it says because it's not like Mycenaeans. Linear B, we can read linear B, but not linear A, but that's Minoan stuff. Like literally the Cypriots heavily influenced everybody in that region. And like, here's one, like just a simple one about the Jews, and we'll get into the Jews because I know the overall arching thing is the theme is where did Christianity come from, right? And if you listen to Myth Vision, Gnostic Informant, or others, Kip David, whatever, all these people, they'll try to make these parallel connections, and it just turns into parallelism. But they're missing the bigger picture. And I think I was in the chat making the comments about the Cypriot because literally Adonis Tamuzi is Jesus. He's a young God that dies, and they're waiting for him to be resurrected. Literally, the Virgin Mary is his mom, Astarte or Aphrodite. And so that's the Virgin Mary line of it. The whole scene of the garden is literally Adonis in a garden. That's like a big part of their ritualistic stuff. They also did spring equinox stuff. So they did a lot of rituals in caves and spring equinox. But the other thing that they did is that they were cultivating opium. Now, when people hear this, they ultimately think, well, they must have got it from Asia, like Afghanistan, and trade with them because opium poppy doesn't grow in Cyprus. Well, no, because we know it didn't actually come from Asia. We know that it came from actually Western Europe. It's a Western European strain of poppy. And historians say Western Europe. Yeah, and we know that because they found in some of the juglets that they were trading, they found some of the clay sediment, and they know it's not from the arid environment. It's actually more from like the Western Mediterranean environment. So cool. It's like a fact that we know this. It's not like, oh my gosh, like we think it's happening. And, it's like you watch one of those guys' channels and you just go down these rabbit holes. Hey, what's up, Marcel?
Dude, your picture looks great. His mic's
we can't hear you.
His mic's messed up. He games so much, he's constantly has to switch his controls around just to.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you better now, but still not that great. So Cyprus, that's what we need to.
Yeah. So the opium they cultivate it, and they became the main supplier in the Mediterranean. So they were supplying Egypt with it, and then Egypt started growing their own in Thebes. They started cultivating their own strain of opium in Thebes. So the Cypriot religion also influenced there because when you're selling opium, these juglets, and they had two different types. They had literally one, and then they made a better one. It's like this designer drug, hey, we got this, but we're gonna make it better. And we found these inverted poppy heads, just like we found the goddess on Crete, the poppy goddess, right? Mm-hmm. That came from Cyprus. And so all of that's being traded. We know that in Canaan, all of the Canaanite high places, we find the Cypriot opium juglets in their ritualistic tombs. So at the high place of Gezer, for example, where they're sacrificing kids, babies, infants, toddlers, right next to it, you'll hear Christians talk about it. Well, yes, they were doing this, and we actually found it, so the Bible must be true because they're doing these sacrifices to Moloch and Baal for fertility, whatever. We literally found right next to it the Cypriot opium juglets, right? So this is hard evidence that nobody can run away from. And also what it tells us, and it tells psychopharmacologists or psychoarchaeology, if you want to take it that way, is that they were now incorporating the Cypriot ritual into their own ritual. Because prior to that, they were not using the opium in those sacrifices to their gods, right? And so this literally transformed the early Jewish culture, the Canaanite culture, into Judaism. Like, this is not a debate. This is not something that you can really, if you're saying, I mean, good luck with that, because we literally found it all over the Levant, right? Not just in Gezer. We found it at multiple locations.
Yeah,
we also found it. Yeah, that's a better question.
Where haven't we found opium now?
That's a better question. And specifically the Cypriot juglet 1 and 2 varieties. So if anybody wants to look it up, go look it up on your own. I'm not going to pull up the papers and all that, but fact check me if you want to go look it up.
What time period are they saying that this you were comparing to Adonis? What year did that start? Cyprus, Adonis, origin.
So the Canaanite opium rituals peaked around the 1300 BCE.
1300 BC
is when the opium, the Canaanites were using it to incorporate it into their ritualistic practices. But we know that in the Deutero reform in 622 BC, literally that entire reform within the Jewish culture was to get rid of the opium practice. So the Jews have gone through various reforms, some of them to get rid of things. And now they say, we're not going to do, because the whole thing is political, right? So if you yourself could go do these plant-based substances and have divination and find God by yourself, why would you need anybody else? You wouldn't need a church. You wouldn't need a temple. You wouldn't need anybody else to do it, right?
That sounds like
what Jesus said, right? Exactly. So then this goes into Christianity. So they wanted people to have to go back. It's a whole political movement, right? And so they want people to run back to something. Otherwise, you're just off doing your own thing. And so these reforms, the reform was to get rid of the ritual with the plants and basically say, we're centralizing. We're not doing that anymore. We're going to do this, but you have to follow. Every time they said you have to follow the letter of the law, right? And so you see that in 150 BC, also with Maccabean revolt, right? Where you have basically Jews that are like going off and learning Greek culture, and then they're incorporating that into the Jewish lifestyle. And then you get people that are upset. And then after the Maccabean revolt around 150, they split off into 4 groups: the Sadducees, the Essenes, right? We all know that story. But so it comes out of war and it comes out of these different revolts, but that's all religion goes through reform. Even the Christian, the narrative is always, well, what about these guys? And that's called a reform, right? When the church fathers came later, that's a reform. When Paul came around 20 years later, that's also a reform, right? These are all different reforms happening. And so we just have to look at it in the context that it actually is, but we have to also look at it from what started this, right? I mean, it heavily influenced by other cultural drug use to find divination, to speak to the dead, and to also experience these different settings, essentially set in settings, right, with these compounds. It did turn into a designer drug war, where you had the Egyptians eventually making a more potent strain of it. You also had the Greeks making their own strain as well for their own use. And so medically, but then also in a ritualistic setting, which we all have, that's all been found data for. So when people say that this isn't about, I mean, we can look at the Bible if you want to pull that up later, witch doctor, we can do that. But when you're looking at like, the two verses about Jesus with the nard and Judas Iscariot, for example.
Yeah.
Judas Iscariot gets mad at him because Jesus literally takes 300 denarii worth of nard, spike nard, which if you guys look up spike nard, the psychoactive effects on the GABA receptors are more like Valium. And he anointed himself and
related to the valerian root.
Yeah. And so he anointed himself, and Judas Iscariot was like calling him out. He's like, dude, why didn't you go sell that for 300 denarii and give it to the poor people like you're preaching to everybody? So all this whole thing about Jesus being this great even though he's a myth, that he's such a great person, he's not. He's really kind of a self-centered prick, to be honest. And that's just one example of it, right?
So the other example says, I'm just going to read some comments while we're getting going and waiting on Chase. Sorry. Words on a piece of paper are equivalent to turds on a piece of paper. Yes. So as you all know, because the way that we look at researching when it comes to the Bible is the art, the anthropology, the cultural surroundings, and adjacent texts that can support the existence of people, artifacts, what do we have, whatever. I have taken the poetic license to completely change the story of the Bible in my books.
They all did. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Let's just be all honest about it. I mean, this is the other argument that I hate hearing people talk about, because what is Christianity? Like, literally read the Bible and it says you had 12 disciples that split off and they were going to go spread word. And then you had more even doing it, right? They named a few other people, like who the hell is that guy? But they're going off and spreading the word, just like they told in the Old Testament, Jeremiah, to go spread the kykeon, the wine mixed with the botanicals, to go spread it, and they will drink it and they will stagger and get drunk from it. God, Yahweh literally told him to go spread it. So it's the same type of situation. But you have 6 deacons, and one being Nicholas, right? We all know Nicholas. And then Barnabas also being another one that, guess what? Barnabas is from Cyprus. And so when they took the Christian cult, the religion, back to Cyprus, nobody was surprised. Nobody said, what the hell is this new shit? They just looked at Jesus like it was a new Adonis. It was a young, dying God that was resurrected, just like fucking Adonis.
It's totally Adonis. I mean, I'll hear or watch videos on all of the different ancient religions for all the parallels. There's so many uncomfortable parallels here or there, whatever, from this figure to this figure to, we've heard Bill Maher refer to Horus in like the movie Religulous. That was just one that a lot of people, once they heard that and they didn't know it before, they regurgitate, but it's not ever enough. Because if you take this kind of conversation to bat with a Christian that you're trying to convince not to believe in whatever the hell I believe in, and they're like, well, I'm backed up by 2,000 years of this, and in 7th grade people will bring up Horus or Zarathustra and just the similarities between the two of the characters. But when you look at Adonis, though, which nobody ever seems to talk about, oh yeah, there's definitely some cross-pollination, like Kip Davis says. I pulled this up. It's what you're talking about. I'm gonna read a second from it. Let's see. Let me take that off. Oh yeah, Mandy. I also I put a dwarf in the last AI picture. So it's a background. I have to show it. All right, so recreation drugs in ancient Greece and Rome. Ancient Greek Olympic athletes took like mushrooms for competitive edge. I don't know where this is cited. Cannabis was mentioned by it's Europe, factsanddetails.com. Cannabis was mentioned by the Greco-Roman era physician Galen, archaeologists in Israel unearthed remains of teenage girl remains of fetus and had been dated at 315 AD with the remains of ash containing THC. Okay, that we pulled that up. The archaeologists speculate that maybe cannabis was given to the girl as pain relief. The Greek scholar Theophrastus wrote about use of opium. Poppy just mentioned opium connection of the myth Ceres and Demeter, and founding fathers of medicine, Hippocrates, Galen, Dioscorides, also wrote about opium. Poppies were also pictured in Greek coins, pottery, jewelry, I thought it said something about Cyprus, but not so
Yeah,
much.
I'll take it over on the Cyprus knowledge.
Oh,
So the
here we go.
base.
Wait, go ahead. I'll pull this down.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. It's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, no, I actually it was. I was gonna say, did I click on something that wasn't? The oldest chemical evidence of the ancient drug comes from traces of opium found in Cyprus. Candida Moss wrote in the Daily Beast. Candida Moss, I've heard that name before. Scientists based at the University of York and British Museum analyzed the residue found inside a small late Bronze Age jug from Cyprus and discovered the presence of opium alkaloids. The base ring juglet, owned by British Museum, had long been assumed to be connected to the opium trade because the head of the jug, like other similar examples from the region, resembles the poppy flower. Haha, gotcha. This is very much a best guess. I actually made a poppy daily planner on Yahoo to see if anybody would ever buy it. No one ever bought it. However, it was not until Professor Jane Thomas Oates of the University of York was able to analyze the contents of the jug that the suspicion was confirmed. The discovery offers evidence that there was a flourishing trade in opium in the Eastern Mediterranean as long as 3,600 years ago. Candida moth. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Fly buzzing by my head. 2018 Daily Beast. I don't know
So
if that's the same one I saw. Go ahead.
so yeah, and then I'm gonna get into it a little bit about regarding specifically the Jewish religion and then actually the Christian religion. So I have a lot of that to spill as well. But yeah, so you're seeing there they tested the residue that came up positive for poppy, in particular opium. So, yeah, there's no, it's clear cut evidence that the Canaanites were adopting it, and literally what you see is like they weren't like just, hey, we're just gonna buy opium from you. They were like, hey, like this is opium, but this is how we use it. And then they said, whoa, we're gonna integrate it into our stuff, and that's exactly what happened. So you see syncretism between Cypriot Canaanite leading into Judaism, literally leading into it. Why? Because we'll get into the Bible verses if we want, but in Isaiah, all of Isaiah is basically bashing the Cypriot pagan cult religion and getting rid of it. He makes the Cypriot opium trade into Judea basically the enemy, and we'll look at those verses. But yeah, I'll just start off with basic evidence. So the base ring juglet evidence from roughly 1600 BC to 1200 BC, Cypriot merchants exported thousands of small ceramic vessels to Canaan and Egypt. Chemical analysis has confirmed that many of these contained opium dissolved in wine or oil in the graves. The presence of these juglets in Canaanite and Egyptian tombs suggests opium was used to ease the passage of the dead and was provided as a luxury for the afterlife. In ritual, in Egypt, opium was associated with the god Thoth, wisdom slash medicine, and was used as an analgesic. I'm sorry, I'm fucking that word up. And sedative in temple settings. Influence on Jewish cultic incense. One of the most debated topics in biblical archaeology is the composition of the Ketoret, the sacred incense burned in the tabernacle and temple. So there's some scholars that actually believe that. So we know it can contain like frankincense, myrrh, and other things. We know, so on the altar of Arad. So we'll take that as one example. There's two altars. On one of the altars, we found myrrh and frankincense. So in the Bible, you know how they were like literally the commandment was to burn it all like 24 hours long. And if that incense smoke wasn't in there, then you could die literally if you entered the Holy of Holies. And then the other one, we found cannabis on the other altar. So there are some scholars that believe it could have contained opium as well. We know that mandrake and poppy. So while opium isn't named, the Hebrew term rosh, often translated as hemlock or gall in the Bible, is sometimes identified by paleobotanists as the opium poppy. If rosh is indeed poppy, its frequent mention alongside wormwood suggests a known tradition of using bitter, mind-altering plants in religious contexts. So they brought it in, right? They started going into these prophesy, putting it into their tombs so they could be closer to the dead and have safe passage for the dead. They were still killing kids. We know that, right? At Gezer, we found that. And then how does that tie? Like, so what is it about the Cypriot religion in particular? So the cult of Cyprus, in Cyprus, the opium poppy was more than export; it was divine. Archaeologists have discovered poppy goddess figurines, terracotta women with poppy capsules, crown-like on their heads, slit in their eyes, mimicking the incisions made on a poppy pod to extract the latex. Exporting the ritual. When merchants sold the vase ring juglets shaped like poppies, they weren't just selling a drug; they were selling a ritual product. The juglets themselves acted as a brand that signaled the presence of a specific divine power. The Canaanites were receptive to it. Sites like Hazor, like Kish, these Cypriot vegetables are found in temple contexts. This suggests the Canaanite priests adopted the Cypriot association between the poppy and the mother goddess Asherah and Astarte. From Cyprus to Canaan. Cyprus was a legendary birthplace of Aphrodite, originally a version of the Phoenician Astarte. The Cypriot merchants helped solidify the worship of a powerful female deity who oversaw both fertility and the underworld, death, healing and death. Because opium could both take away pain, healing, and induce a deep sleep, symbolic death, the Cypriot religion influenced the Canaanite view of the afterlife. We see this in the way the Canaanite graves began to mirror Cypriot burial styles, including the placement of the psychoactive kits for the deceased. You see the direct fucking influence on the Canaanites that led right into Judaism right after this. Religious syncretism, the great merge. The ancient world didn't see religions as competing teams like we do today. They practiced syncretism, where they blended gods together. So there's Egyptian connection. So in Egypt, the Cypriot influence merged the worship of Hathor, the goddess of joy and intoxication. So they took Blue Lotus and combined it with the opium. And then in Canaan, in the Levant, we saw that their shift was they started incorporating the Canaanite Cypriot goddess worship, became the primary target for the later Hebrew prophets. So that's my whole contention and kind of the evidence for this. Like, not only are we finding the physical evidence of them inserting it into the damn religion themselves at their high places, what we're literally seeing them later on attack the early Jews for doing it. So you literally have reform after reform. So the first reform is, hey, we're going to adopt this, bring it in, cool, it's going to help us, right? But we're going to still, sacrifice kids and all that. And then the other reform from it later on at 622, the Josiah reform was, we're not going to do this anymore, and we're going to follow the law, or we're going to start telling people anyway to start following the law. Direct influence on Jewish tradition. While the later Jewish religion became strictly monotheistic, the Cypriot Canaanite layer remained a folk religion for centuries. Votive offerings, the practice of leaving small clay figurines and vessels in graves, a hallmark of Cypriot influence, continued in Judea until the radical reforms of the 7th century BC. The pomegranate and the poppy motifs found in the decorations of Solomon's temple, specifically 1 Kings 7:18, reflect a shared Mediterranean visual of fertility and divine abundance that was popularized by the Cypriot maritime traders. So we see it, man. It's not like this is fucking hidden shit, or it's just like parallels that we're finding one author from another. We're finding physical fucking evidence for it. The connection between Cypriot opium and the sacrificial practices at Gezer, the broader Canaan, marks a shift in how ancient societies managed the mechanics of ritual violence. While early 20th century excavations, yeah, we'll get to that, to Ball, he's coming up. Excavations at Gezer by R.A.S. McAllister famously claimed to find widespread infant sacrifice in the high place. Modern bioarchaeology has recontextualized these finds. Many of those infants likely died of natural causes, but the ritualized burial of children, sometimes involving sacrifice, remains a historical reality in the region. Opium changed these rituals by moving them from raw traumatic events into highly sedated, staged liturgical performances. Opium as a sacred sedative. In the Bronze Age, the transition from life to death was seen as a dangerous crossing. Cypriot merchants provided the base ring juglets containing opium to Canaanite priests, which served a dual purpose in child-related rituals. If a child was to be dedicated or sacrificed to a deity like Moloch or Baal, opium acted as a powerful sedative to ensure the victim was unconscious or docile, preventing a struggle that would have been seen as a bad omen or a blemish sacrifice. For mourners, the Marzia, ancient feast, often accompanied these burials. The ritual consumption of opium-infused wine allowed the community to enter a trance-like state, dueling the grief and reframing the death as a spiritual necessity rather than a tragic loss. The shift in at Gezer, the alignment of the massive standing stones, Matsabat, suggests a site of public communal ritual as Cypriot opium trade peaked. The presence of Cypriot pottery in the high place burials shows that these rituals became standardized. They weren't frenzied acts, but organized religious events using imported luxury tools. The sweet sleep. Archaeologists have found that some of the jar burials at Gezer contained infants with small Cypriot juglets placed right next to them. This suggests that the theology of the ritual had changed. The child was being put into an eternal sacred sleep, the poppy's gift, rather than simply being discarded. Medical versus ritual. It is important to note that opium wasn't always used for killing. In a high infant mortality society, opium was the primary medicine for colic or pain. Many of the babies found in Gezer may have been treated with opium to save them. When they died, the medicine bottle was buried with them as a final comfort. This created a thin line between healing and sacrifice to the Canaanite mind. The same substance that quieted a crying baby also quieted a sacrificial victim for the gods. Influence on later Jewish reaction. This specific combination, ritual killing, goddess worship, and imported psychoactives, is exactly what the later biblical writers were reacting against. The Valley of Hinnom, Gehenna, where child sacrifices occurred, was described as a place of fire and smoke. By the time the Jewish religion centralized, they completely banned the Cypriot Canaanite kid. They replaced the drug-induced ecstasy of the high places with the strict, sober reading of the law. So that's exactly what happened during that reform. The smoking gun, obviously the smoke, if anybody wants to argue against this, the smoking gun is we literally found it, right? We found it all over the Levant. So if anybody wants to, fight this, they can try, but they're going to fail. Many early Israelite houses contain small incense altars or standing stone matzabat. The presence of poppy chemical traces in some of these highland sites suggest that even earlier pioneer Israelites continued to use opium-infused oils. They didn't see this as a pagan view. They saw it as a standard way to commune with the divine. The cult of Asherah, the queen of heaven. The Cypriot merchants had popularized the mother goddess figure. Archaeology shows that early Israelites frequently worshipped Yahweh alongside Asherah. Kuntilet Adrad, an archaeological site in the Sinai, contains inscriptions that say, "I bless you by Yahweh of Samaria and his Asherah." Cypriot figurines, small mass-produced clay figurines likely influenced by Cypriot poppy goddess styles, are found in nearly every Israeli excavation layer from 1200 BC to 600 BC. Boom. There's your fucking absolute data, absolute archaeological data, and relative archaeological data. You can't get any fucking better evidence than any of this.
Where was that from? What journal?
What? Where
was that from?
The archaeological site that they found this at was at Kuntalet Adrad. You can just Google it and probably find a paper. There's probably multiple papers.
Oh, there's a few. Okay, I got you. So it's like the cannabis opium ones. It's like there was at least 10 different word for word identical articles, but different platforms on those. It was very easy to find them. I'm sure that's the same way with that at this point. It's just people don't, I guess the certain groups that I've been friends with, they haven't really covered a lot of Cyprus. I don't even have a chapter on Cyprus or anything, even in
11,000 years old, their culture is. And everybody wants to focus on Greek influence and all this stuff. Well, the Greeks were heavily influenced by the older Cypriot, and so were the Minoans. And we know this. If you start looking up Cypriot Minoan stuff, dude, they literally find reliefs, the Minoan reliefs that they couldn't explain forever because they are so different than the Greek, are fucking Cypriot. They were trying to go the other way. They're like, oh, they're just trying to put Mycenae with Minoan, but that's the backwards way to do it. And the forward way to do it is to use the Cypriot and go forward, not the other way around. The ritual purge. The reason we think the Jews as having never practiced these rituals is because of massive cultural reset called the Deuteronomic Reform around 622 BC, as I mentioned, King Josiah's campaign. The Bible record records that Josiah tore down the high places, broke the standing stones, and burned the Asherah poles. 2 Kings 23. So the motive, this was a political and religious effort to centralize all power in Jerusalem. To do that, the priests had to ban the local Cypriot-style rituals, Asherah, and the damned opium the families were practicing in their own villages. They essentially outlawed the ethnobotanical and goddess-centered practices of their own ancestors. So that was that reform that happened, as I mentioned before, and it's also mentioned in the Bible. What survived into Judaism? We have, even after the purge, elements of Cypriot influence past were upcycled into the official Jewish religion, the menorah. Some scholars argue that the seven-branched lampstand was originally a stylized tree of life or a botanical symbol like a lily or a poppy from the older goddess traditions, repurposed to represent the light of God. The pomegranates, another Cypriot favorite, remained a sacred symbol of the robes of the high priests and the pillars of the temple. The Nazarite vow, the idea of a sacred set apartness involving abstinence or specific physical requirements mirror the pure life requirements found in earlier Mediterranean mystery cults. And so essentially early Jews did practice these rituals. So this is, again, where did Judaism come from? It was a mashing together of Cypriot opium and their rituals and their religion into the Levant with the Canaanite traditions. So it was more syncretism, but that sprung off into the Jewish culture. And then over time, they did these reforms. And so it's never stagnant. It's never static, right? These religions, we know that. But this is why. To me, and I've always said, it's a designer drug war. And we'll get back into that.
So funny. If you try to tell, like the average Christian, that it's all exactly the same, sometimes they don't love that, but if they look at a lot of this stuff, there's so many parallels for sure. I didn't think, for some reason, Cyprus hasn't been like a really big area of focus amongst all the crowds that are talking about the pseudo theology stuff, or whatever you want to call it, Gnostic stuff and whatnot.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be dropping a lot of
there. Did they find any text there that was like, they didn't find anything like that there, did they?
Oh, we're going to get into some like grade A fucking evidence, right? For their own story. Not that I believe in it.
I forgot where we're going to get found.
Oh yeah. The Nag Hammadi, the Dead Sea Scroll. It was found in
it's in my book.
It was found in Egypt.
Right. Yeah. I just forgot what town, what area.
So some people some people debate that. We can get into the Dead Sea Scrolls in a little bit, but you have basically people that think it's
it'll give me the town. It's town in southern Egypt along the Nile River. Oh, Nag Hammadi is a town in southern Egypt located along the Nile River.
Yeah,
it's because of the Nag Hammadi discovery.
But we found
the town's name was Nag Hammadi.
People debate on who wrote it, right? So you have the camps that people say, well, it was Jewish influence, or hey, it was early Christians or Gnostics or others. And we literally found a fragment of the Nag Hammadi in the Zealot camps. We can get into that later. That's a whole different topic, but
I'm pulling up pictures real quick.
But yeah, I want to get back to this real quick. So the influence of Cypriot religion, specifically, it's focused on sacramental substances, the suffering deity, and the Great Mother, formed a subterranean layer that resurfaced as Christianity moved into the Mediterranean. And we know that because when they introduced it, and we'll get back into the Christian, how the Cypriot culture and religion and opium influenced Christianity, because it does. So it's coming back full circle. But we'll get through the Jewish stuff first. The transformation of the Papus Gaudium into the Virgin Mother. I guess this is we're jumping around, but we'll jump right into it. This is the heavy hitter right into the Christian stuff. Screw it. I think we kind of wrapped it up into the Jewish stuff. We'll go into the Christian stuff. So the transformation of the poppy goddess into the Virgin Mother. The Cypriot merchants were the primary spreaders of the Astarte Aphrodite cult. In Cyprus, this goddess, and everybody knows Heraclitus, right? Anybody heard of that guy? Yeah, he was part of one of these cults. But anyways, in Cyprus, this goddess was often linked to healing, mourning, and the poppy. The mother of sorrows. When Christianity reached Cyprus and the surrounding coast, the local populations were already accustomed to a divine female figure who mourned a dying and rising consort, Adonis/Tammuz. The iconography. Early depictions of the Virgin Mary often borrowed the throned mother posture of these older Mediterranean goddesses, the two from Cyprus. And some early Christian folk traditions in the Levant, certain flowers and herbs like the poppy and the mandrake were reimaged as tears of the Virgin, mirroring the older tears of Aphrodite myths. The sacrament as a mystery rite. In ancient Cypriot Canaanite world, religion was participatory. You didn't just hear a sermon; you consumed a substance like opium-infused wine to be with God. From ecstasy to Eucharist. While the Christian Eucharist, bread and wine, has Jewish roots in the Passover, the way the Greeks and Romans understood it was very Cypriot. They viewed it as a pharmacological mystery, a physical substance that granted immortality. The healing touch. The early Christian focus on anointing the sick with oil, extreme unction, is a direct descendant of the Mediterranean medical religious tradition where holy oils were infused with botanicals like those found on the Cypriot juglets were used to bridge the gap between physical healing and spiritual salvation. The cult of the dying and rising youth. Cyprus was the center of the cult of Adonis, a beautiful youth who dies and is mourned only to return. The liturgical calendar. The rhythm of the Cypriot religious year, springtime morning followed by a celebration of life, matched the emotional calendar of Holy Week and Easter. When Paul and later missionaries preached in places like Paphos, a major Cypriot religious site, they weren't introducing the concept of a resurrected God. They were providing a new name for a cycle the people had already been practicing with Cypriot poppy rituals for over a millennium. Direct geographical links, Barnabas and Paul. We can't overlook the fact that one of the most important early Christian leaders, Barnabas, was a Levite from Cyprus, Acts 4:36. Barnabas was the bridge between the Jewish law and the Mediterranean mystery. Because he grew up in the melting pot of Cyprus, he was uniquely suited to translate the Jewish story of Jesus into a language that people raised on Cyprus in the Orphic mysteries could understand. So that's also a big one, right? And we'll get into a little bit more here directly in the Christian context. But Barnabas being a big picture, but also we've known that Jesus raised Lazarus. Well, where was Lazarus from? He was from Cyprus. Who was the first a politician to actually adopt Christianity? It was a governor from fucking Cyprus. And we'll get into that in a second. To understand how Jesus fit into the Cypriot religious landscape, you have to look at the figure of Adonis. Cyprus was the world center for the cult of Adonis, the Lord, from the Semitic Adon, a beautiful youth who died tragically and was believed to be reborn, at least to live on through the seasonal cycle of nature. When the story of Jesus reached Cyprus, the local population didn't see a stranger. They saw a perfected version of the dying and rising archetype they had worshipped for centuries. Jesus as the true Adonis. The Cypriots were accustomed to a god who suffered. Unlike the distant, invincible Roman gods, the Cypriot deity was intimate, vulnerable, and tied to the earth. The shared title, the name Adon, Lord, used by Cypriot Canaanites, is a linguistic cognate to the Hebrew Adonai. For a Cypriot, calling Jesus Lord, Kyrios, was a natural transition from calling Adonis Adon. The garden context, right? All of this shit is here. The garden context. Adonis was famously associated with gardens of Adonis, small pots of herbs that sprouted quickly and died. Jesus' agony in the Garden of Gethsemane and his burial in a garden tomb resonated powerfully with the Cypriot imagery of the god in the garden, Adonis in the garden. The replacement of sacred sleep. As we discussed with the opium trade, Cypriot religion focused on a sacred sleep of a drug-induced journey to the underworld. The theological pivot. Christianity replaced the pharmacological sleep, opium, with a theological sleep. Jesus was preached as the one who actually conquered the underworld that the Cypriot priests had only visited in trances. In Cyprus, Jesus became the great physician who offered a rare cure for death, making the old poppy-based rituals obsolete because he provided the medicine of immortality, the Eucharist. The Cypriot Christ in art and symbology. Early Christian artifacts found in Cyprus show a fascinating blend of these worlds, the vine and the poppy. In early Cypriot Christian art, the vine, symbolizing Jesus, often replaced the poppy, symbolizing the old mystery cults. However, they kept the same artistic composition, a central divine figure surrounded by life-giving botanical symbols. The cross as a tree of life. The Cypriots had long worshipped sacred trees linked to the goddess Asherah. The cross was presented to them not just as a Roman execution tool, but as the ultimate tree, effectively absorbing the old Cypriot tree worship into the new faith. Why Cyprus was ready for Jesus? Because the merchants and the ancient rituals you've been tracking, Cyprus was intellectually and spiritually primed for Christianity. Barnabas, as we discussed before, but the first Christian ruler. It is no coincidence that the first Roman provincial governor to convert to Christianity was Sergius Paulus, the proconsul of Cyprus in Acts 13. He lived at the heart of the Adonis cult and saw in Christianity a more powerful, organized version of the ancient spiritual truth Cyprus had held for millennia. Where does Mary fit into all this, right? Mary's fit into Cypriot religion is perhaps the most seamless transition in the history of the early church. In Cyprus, the Great Mother had been the dominant spiritual force for thousands of years under various names: Ishtar, Astarte, and most famously, Aphrodite. When Christianity arrived, the population didn't abandon the female divine. They projected the qualities and rituals of these ancient goddesses onto the Virgin Mary, the Theotokos. The successor of the Lady of Cyprus. Cyprus was known throughout antiquity as the island of Aphrodite. However, this wasn't just the goddess of romance. The Cyprus Virgin was a powerful ancient lady of the land who oversaw life, death, and healing. Iconography. Ancient Cypriot figurines of the plant goddess or the nurturing mother holding a child provided the visual template for the early icons of the Virgin Mary. The queen title, just as Astarte was called the Queen of Heaven, Mary was adopted by Cypriots with the same royal reverence. Many early Cypriot churches were built directly on top of old temples dedicated to Aphrodite or Hera, the botanical link from poppies to lilies. Cypriot religion was deeply tied to ethnobotanicals, poppies, pomegranates, mandrakes. The sanctification of herbs. In Cypriot folk Christianity, the old sacred plants of the goddess were rebaptized. The poppy, once a symbol of the goddess's sacred sleep and healing, became a symbol of the blood of Christ or the sorrows of Mary. Floral offerings. The ancient tradition of bringing flowers and aromatic herbs to the temple of the goddess transitioned into the flower-decorated epitaphios, I don't know how to say that, ritual seen in Cypriot Orthodox churches today, where the mother's grief is central to the liturgical year. The Mater Dolorosa and the mourning of Adonis. The most profound fit was emotional. Cypriot religion centered on the mourning mother who wept for the dead god Adonis. Shared grief. When the story of Mary weeping at the foot of the cross was preached, it struck a deep, ancient chord in Cyprus. The Cypriots already had a theology of tears. So you just see, like, there's no way that this is anything else, right? You have people bring up the Magi. Well, what were the Magi? The Magi were simply a political tool for Christianity early on. They put it in there because they wanted Christianity to feel like it was international. You had these wise men from the East that accepted Christ as this divine figure. And if you had that in the story, then it gives you more credence. Like, hey, the smartest people from the East believe in this stuff, right? So it was more or less used in that directive, in my opinion. But you don't really have any of these other parallels anywhere else, right? You have some, but if you look at those other little parallels that exist elsewhere, a lot of them actually come from the ancient Cypriot religion. And why Little Cyprus, as you mentioned before, witch doctors, because they were maritime, right? So they were traveling everywhere. They were going
just
all over the place. Yeah, they were a
just
hot.
yeah, so central, and it's close enough to some of the. I mean, we know that everything leading up out of Africa just gets older and older and older and older. But to have 11,000-year-old, references that are similar. That's what do we got here? Are these the same mandrakes? We got Raw Path. Man, I didn't know what happened to you, dude. I thought you disappeared. All these are the same mandrakes from the Tower of Harry Potter.
Yes.
I'm sure there was different strains of them, but yeah.
Well, so let's break it down because that's a really good question, actually, and your answer was good too. But the way that they would utilize mandrakes, right? And it's cool because if you guys go look up like Dioscordes, in Dioscordes he writes about the use of mandrakes, but he also mentions the shepherd and Jesus being a good shepherd, right? Yeah. But the shepherds of the time would actually Dioscordes mentions in De Materia Medica, and he mentions that shepherds eat mandrake. Indeed, yeah, dude, he mentions it in there. People probably miss that shit, right? But anyway, they utilize it in 3 different ways. They use the root of the mandrake. Either they eat the fruit of the mandrake, and we actually have a second CE source, a Greek source, that says that the fruit in the Garden of Eden was actually the mandrake apple. The apple was the mandrake apple, as they called it, because it looked like an apple. And so yeah, and then you can use the leaves or the stem, so they're all different potency for the scopolamine essentially. So, but anyway, the Cypriots influenced the Greeks, and if you guys really want to know how they did that, a lot of the Greek writing system and language actually came from the Cypriot Phoenician system. So, they heavily influenced the Greeks. Later on too. Hey, what's up, Chase?
Hey man, sorry I'm late. I had an open mic thing and it took me a while to get out of there.
Oh, that's cool. How'd it go?
Oh, it went pretty good. Still going on. But yeah, it was good, man. It's a good little set of locals, and man, people each time, it's like once a month, but each time someone shows up and they just kill it. You're just like, wow, what is this guy doing?
We're talking about Cypriot, and how old
Gotcha.
the legacy of Adonis, if you will, and how was this what Neil was talking about on his show? Did they bring that up at all, or was it in the chats or something? Or did you mention it in the chat that night?
I was the one mentioning it, and he saw it, but then he was kind of halfway drunk and probably was looking at a bunch of other shit. But good for him. I mean, he had a lot of people donating to him. I don't blame him. He's got to make money. So
where is it? Here's a show starting sometime in the next few minutes.
What?
See where he was at.
I wanted to add a couple things, and I'll let you guys take it while I go get another beer. But the polemic against the sacred gardens. So this is going back into the Jews like attacking the Cypriots. In Isaiah 1:29, for you shall be ashamed of the oaks that you desired, and you shall blush for the gardens that you have chosen. Cypriot religion focused on the gardens of Adonis, right? And they knew that. And so Isaiah was directly attacking their religious practices that we saw on Cyprus. He even came out and said it. Isaiah 23:1. Wail, O ships of Tarshish, of Tyre, for Tyre is laid waste from the land of Cyprus, Kittim. It is revealed to them. So they're going on this polemic about the Rosh, the cup of wrath. Isaiah frequently uses the imagery of a cup of staggering or the cup of wrath. The ethnobotanical layer, in Hebrew word Rosh, is often linked to the open poppy. In Isaiah 51:17, he speaks of Jerusalem having drunk the bowl of the cup of staggering. The symbolism, he uses the very substances traded by Cypriot merchants, the psychoactive wines, as a metaphor for spiritual blindness. For Isaiah, the ecstasy provided by the Cypriot mystery cults was actually a form of divine judgment, of a drunkenness that prevented the people from seeing the truth. In short, so Isaiah basically became anti-Cypriot. Isaiah 51:17-22, cup of Saturn, wake yourself, stand, O Jerusalem. You have drunk from the hand of the Lord the cup of his wrath, who have drunk to the dregs the bowl, the cup of staggering. Isaiah 23:1, as we just mentioned, Isaiah 23:12, no rest in Cyprus. He said, you shall no more exult, O oppressed virgin daughter of Sidon. Arise, pass over to Cyprus, Kittim. Even there you shall have no rest. Even if the refugees of the coastal cities flee to their mystery centers in Cyprus, Isaiah argues they will find no peace. The sacred sleep of the Cypriot religion will not save them from the geopolitical shifts Isaiah attributes to the God of Israel. The gardens and the sacred oaks. Isaiah's most aggressive verses are against the gardens, the Ganana, which were the epicenter of the Cypriot Canaanite ethnobotanical cults. Isaiah 65:3, the rituals of the garden. A people who provoke me to my face continually, sacrificing in gardens and making offerings on bricks or altars. Isaiah 66:17, the purge of the mystery cults. Those who sanctify and purify themselves to go into the gardens, falling one in the midst, eating pig's flesh and the abomination of mice, and shall come to an end together, declares the Lord. So he's clearly making this attack on the sensory-based religion, and he's trying to transfer it, reform it into a word-based religion, which is exactly what we see the fucking Christians doing, right? And they continue to do it by attacking directly into Cyprus later on through Barnabas, through the story of raising the dead of Lazarus, and through the first fucking ruler that gets in there. So yeah, I'm gonna go grab another beer. You guys want to take over?
Cool. Hell yeah. Chase, what's going on, man? I know you joined a little bit late, but go ahead and catch us up on your life and on your travels. Oh, can't hear you. Good
Gotcha.
now.
Yeah,
Yes.
man, all kinds of stuff. Just staying real busy. Stay real busy with the kava bar, making sure that everything's running right. So can kind of go on to the next thing, but also just real big on just creating a space for like creative people to come and figure it out and meet other creative people and gather around, I guess, different plants and stuff that I guess are less destructive, if that makes any sense. Like I think it'd be good to do probably do like an episode or make a series of episodes to kind of educate people on the different plants that are common in kava bars and kind of arm people with like an education and approach to dealing with it, because there's a lot of wild stuff out there.
It's more than just kava.
Yeah. Well, typically kava bars also have kratom, which is like that's a pretty big like it's kind of like a I don't know what you want to call it. Like it's a spooky word right now. There's like it really depends on what you mean by that. Yeah, well, it's like the plant by itself is much different than what's been going around in kind of vape shops and smoke shops, and like there's
the feel free blue bottles from the gas station.
Right. Yeah, that's different. Yeah. So basically, it's kind of related to what we're talking about. They're like designer drug wars to a degree. So they find like you can't patent a plant, right? And plants are profiles, and depending on how you're using that plant and your body's absorbing it, that profile creates the experience that you're having. And companies will create formulas based on those profiles, but there are a couple molecules that are really strong. And one of them that got banned, thank God, was 7-OH. And it's a molecule. It's 0.02% in the plant. And it's part of a family of, and it's also an alkaloid, a family of, sorry, I said molecule, but alkaloid, that family of alkaloids. And it's the one that hits you the hardest.
Okay.
And then it also drops you off real fast. So when it's working together with the other alkaloids, it kind of creates like a smooth little arc. And there's also like a ceiling on it when you're ingesting the plant. Like you could only consume so much to get like that certain feeling without throwing up or getting sick. And there are people that can build up tolerances over years and years and years, but they're still just digesting the plant. So there's not a lot going on there, right? But if I take that molecule out, and I mean, they couldn't even extract it, it was so small. But if I'm able to, I take that out, I synthesize it, I copy it, and then I put it in a delivery mechanism where your body absorbs it really quickly. I'm going to give you that big punch, but a whole bunch of it. And then it's going to drop you off real quick, right? Which creates a real big imbalance and gives people.
How do they get it in the bloodstream?
Oh, I'd have to look at it. I think I have to look at the different, like usually it was coming in pill form, so it was digestion. I wouldn't doubt if somebody figured out other strange ways to figure it out, but I think it depends also on like what each company was putting with that molecule. Like maybe it's nothing, maybe it's just freewheeling and they're digesting it too. But it's it's clearly like a short-term strategy to they know it's probably going to go illegal when they make something like that, so they release it, make the money, and then gets banned, and they're like, oopsie, but they made all their money. And then it becomes something that's like gonna likely be sold illegally and stuff. It's also going to likely be something that's going to be used medically because it doesn't depress your lungs like an opiate would. So I can give you a shot of that, and then I can use it in conjunction with other things when I'm operating on you because your lungs won't depress. But anyway, it's a long way to kind of say, like, you got to be real careful about that, because if you're getting something like that delivered to your door, or you're able to, like around here when it first popped up, and people get that dope high feeling from it, that should ring a lot of alarms. Like, that's a big feeling. You're gonna have to pay the price for it in some way. And so, though it looks like it doesn't kill you in the way like an opiate would kill you, in terms of like your respiratory system goes down if you take too much of it. The problem is you can keep taking it, and it's such a like spike. The tolerance goes up very, very quickly for whoever's taking it. So
First time.
you're looking, yeah, well, you're looking a month to 3 months. People are eating a ton of this stuff, and they can keep going because they're not going to be passing out.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you would think like, oh, okay, well, I mean, they're dope high and they're ordering a lot of this stuff, but it's not killing their organs or anything, so they're okay. Here's the problem. Your receptors that are catching that alkaloid, they're just getting blasted like with like a laser over and over again, basically. Something that they haven't been around or evolved, I guess, to handle it. So it's basically like shattering that receptor, damaging the hell out of it. So when you go to get off this stuff, that receptor might not function correctly for you to pick up other things, like, I don't know, going outside and enjoying the day. Or more importantly, if you got admitted to a hospital and you needed actual pain relievers, you wouldn't feel them. So there's been reports of that as well. And so that becomes a big problem. So that's going to affect your personality. It's going to create an addictive personality. It's going to create like a vacuum of somebody that like it's likely going to try to fill that hole with other strong substances. That's what I've seen. And there haven't been any, as far as I've seen, released studies on exactly what the long-term effects of severe abuse of it would be. But I can guarantee you it's going to be something like that, just based on how it works. And it makes sense that would happen. And the real crazy thing is what's that?
You'll have that there?
No. Oh, no.
Oh, I thought you were talking about stuff that y'all have. I was like, damn.
No. Absolutely not, man. Even when that stuff was legal, I didn't want anything to do with it, man. And I went around just like I'm boring the hell out of you guys right now, and told everybody about, like, it's not like an opinion. Do not take this stuff.
Gotcha.
When they figure out how to use it medically and professionally, that, and it's administered, that's a tool. But other than that, stay away from it. And they'll call it kratom, or they'll call it, they've even called it kava, put it in, like, because those names are associated with the plants that are much safer, right?
And that's what they're faking this shit with.
What's that?
That's what they're faking the stuff with?
So, well, they found the alkaloid in the kratom plant, and they found what it did, but it's 0.02% in the plant. And then so they pulled it out, and they synthesized it and copied it, and then mass quantities, right?
Gotcha.
One alkaloid, right? So you got a family of alkaloids. When you eat something or you ingest a plant or something, that whole family of alkaloids is giving you that experience. And so it puts a breaker on it because there's only so much of that plant you can ingest. So you can't get that same kind of high. And in fact, the difference, like they were calling it kratom, like so people who are normal tea drinkers would get it and stuff, thinking like, oh yeah, this is just like the plant that I have. They're calling it that, but it's so different that if you get hooked on something like 7-OH, if you go to be like, okay, I'm going to tamper off with using kratom because it's the same thing, right? Doesn't do anything. Like literally heard some horrible stories of people who were like trying to get off of it, and they would drink the tea all day and still go through withdrawals and like serious withdrawals. Yeah. So it's interdimensionally different. It's like, the plant by itself, nature got it right the first time. It does have potential to over long term, like you can build up a pretty high tolerance to it, but the ability to tamper off of it is like very, very easy, especially if you're disciplined about it. So anyway, that's the plant that's real spooky. The kava is a lot different. It's a root. It dances with your GABA receptors. It doesn't bind to them, but you get kind of a feeling that might be associated with like a Xanax or something, but it's not binding to those receptors, so it's not blocking other signals and stuff. So it's just non-physiologically addictive. It could be, I imagine it could be mentally addictive, but because it's not binding, you get kind of a calm feeling. People have different kinds of calm experiences, and not that kind of severe, I guess, outcome on the back end. It's been used for a long time medicinally. There's all different versions of the plant. Most of the plants that Samoans and people in Fiji drink, and now it's like all over here. It seems to be a pretty good. I don't know if alternative is the right word, but like looking to relax after work or something like that. You're not going to get hungover unless you get super dehydrated. You're not going to lose your motor functions. You're not going to become disinhibited, and you still get like a relaxing kind of social vibe. I would say it's pretty, I've seen a lot of people that were like severe alcoholics. It seems to be because it dances with the GABA receptors. That's going to be close to benzos a little bit, right? So it's just
plant of Fiji.
Yeah. There's a lot in there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And it's just a root.
Coconuts of it, I believe.
Oh yeah. They will put it in shells. They'll call them shells or coconut shells. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw like one documentary on kava, but I never really dove into it very deep, just because it wasn't, like the Fab Four, like it wasn't LSD or mushrooms or any of the really, entheogenic ones,
Right. Yeah.
It's an MAO.
It is entheogenic.
Yeah. It's an MAO, just like Syrian rue is an MAO. It's a potentiator. Mono
helps.
And allegiance to oxidate or oxidate. Yeah, basically.
It's calming.
Well, I wonder what they take from Fiji with the kava to make the Fijiwaska, if you will.
That sounds wild.
You could actually. That's a really good point, because there's probably like, because even in Hawaii, so like there were ancient ritualistic drawings, basically, of humanoids on the beach that were fossilized in Hawaii. And like that anthropomorphic stuff that we see even in La Lodosa, which is in South Africa or South America, which is like 12,000 years ago, right? Is all anthropomorphic shit, and it's all shamanistic. Like everybody knows it is. They say it is themselves, and all the South American scholars or ancient historians, archaeologists say, yeah, that's probably what it is, because you have like different animals with humanoid bodies doing different things that we see in North America and other places. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely potentiate with kava. I mean, it literally is an MAO. So if you add another plant that has DMT, which is like everywhere, you could pretty much make a brew that, and they might not even note it, right? They might just say, hey, like, we like the taste of this plant and we're going to add it to this so it doesn't taste bitter or whatever to make it taste better, and just so that just so happens that shit has DMT in it, right? And maybe they did. Maybe they did. I know that today, like the modern day kava use is more like social. Like they'll all sit in a circle and one guy will fucking make it and then he'll give it out. But who knows? Maybe it was individualized. Maybe it was used by certain groups in that format.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you think about stacking. Just stacking for an experience, stacking for a certain type of transformation, whatever those operations were, that you'd have something that's in there that would calm people, right? Like depending on what they're going through, or I don't know. It's like what I imagine has some kind of interactive effect, and maybe even certain things activate. I'm definitely interested in, like, hopefully we can discover some more stuff. I mean, like, see it, but like, is there anybody looking at the combinations of some of these formulas and what they're discovering and seeing if these things interact, like in the body? So like, why would they put a certain amount of XYZ? Just the same way we do right now, like in a lot of different medicines. If someone were to dig up a pill, they'd find, they wouldn't just find in those pain pills, they'd find all kinds of weird shit in there,
You want to hear some crazy shit, guys? Like, I was pissed off for the longest time because we had remember the base, the boss Juglet, the BAS, the god from Egypt that had the saliva / semen, mixed in there with scopolamine and other things. Like, we have that, but so essentially a lot of the new research that's happening, there's PhDs, people getting PhDs now that go into a museum, and I shit you not, Chase, pick up an old fucking Roman jug and they're going to scrape it and analyze it. That's their PhD. So literally this
That's
thing has
awesome.
been sitting in museums for 200, 300 years, and they never once thought, let's fucking test it. Right?
Right.
So it's
My
good
wife-
that they're finally doing it. And we're going to see a bunch of that research come out like this year into next year. There's going to be a lot more of this happening.
What's the PhD program? Do you know?
It's in I think it's in ethnobotany, but more like there's a new sect basically called pharma psychological and archaeology mixed together. So it's like more pharma archaeology is what some of these people are calling.
My wife needs to do for her PhD.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, just go to a museum, be like, hey, I'm with this museum. Can we scrape that fucking thing you have? And
we'll be all over fucking Greece.
Well, they're I mean, there's just no doubt they're gonna find all kinds of things in there. I don't know how what I missed when you were talking about all of that stuff, but you mentioned Adonis. I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to bring up or add to it, but yeah, there's a lot of there's we were talking about this. I think it was last night, was it? I can't remember.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was pretty tired. We really don't comprehend, I guess, in regular communication, how different these people spoke than us. And when we take these translations, they become characters and like stories. And I mean, in all directions, lining up now with the archaeology, these were processes, right? And they became characters. It's like and of course they were important things, important texts that were hidden or, were valuable or what do you want to call them. They say, the center of civilization and all this stuff. And it makes a lot more sense that they were operative. And the ancient Greek language contains, it takes so many of our words to describe one of their words. You imagine speaking like that, you know what I mean? So each word you spoke with, people had what we would, have in English, like an essay in their head about that one word, but that was just one word in conjunction with other words. It just seems much more elegant and I don't know, complex in a good way and functional. And so, what does that mean for all of these history classes and comparisons of like, okay, well, they had a dying and rising God, and okay, they took from that one, and it's this big back and forth of who took from who. And we're arguing. It looks we're likely arguing over their like their transformational technology, their processes. They weren't actually stories and plot points. Like, where'd you get these metaphors and all of like what we would?
What happened was these guys were communing with God via the psychopharmacology. Isaiah and others in the Jewish reforms saw it. They wanted to take that power and centralize it.
Yep.
We live in that paradigm to this day.
Right.
The drug war is still happening. And there's some of us that have been privileged enough to not grow up in that world, like myself, or found our way out of it. Like I know, Stephen, you were raised Christian, right? And you kind of found your way out of it, right?
No. So I was atheist my whole life.
Oh, your family's not Christian?
No, well, okay. Well, I see what you could be getting at. So everybody in my family is Christian because they're white people from South Carolina, so that's all that they do. And if you aren't all about that, they don't really want to argue about it. That's not the kind of people they are, but like they've read the Bibles and they go to church every Sunday, my grandparents and stuff. My mom, no. My dad, no. But they are Christian. More of a legacy version of it, And I never was, but I never thought any other stuff was real, like I didn't think any of the people were real or anything like that, which is great.
So you never had like a weird attachment like Almond or Neil did then?
No. That in fact, the book's behind me, but Witch Doctor Christianity is that story. So for those of y'all out there that aren't exactly sure what the hell Witch Doctor Christianity is all about, it's a joke title on a new section of Christianity, and it's a witch doctor version of it, which is just my version of it, which is just an anthropological and artistic rendition of the religion. So we don't care if he was real or not, or if he was divine or not, or any of that stuff. And I've written alternate timeline type books to it. With Secundus, there's a different timeline it's not the same one that everyone's used to. Why? Who gives a shit? It's like Jay and Silent Bob reboot. They rebooted the whole thing and brought in the daughter, and she's older, and it's actually Jay's long lost daughter from the girl that he was with in the Jay and Silent Bob movie. They did a reboot, right? So I'm doing the same thing with Christianity, and Christianity is so boring now that the only places that we found entertainment in it is like the shows that we watch and the guests that we bring on. That they're the only thing that's entertaining about it.
Yo,
so okay,
I got
do something else with it. That's all.
I got a funny fucking verse or chapter that we need to read because I was sharing it today on Discord. Okay. And a lot of people were like, "What the fuck? I never knew this shit was in the Bible." You guys are gonna laugh your asses off at this shit. Okay, but anyway, yeah, I didn't know that about you. I thought you were more like those guys, but you and me are similar because like I was never like pushed on, and if I didn't want to do anything, I didn't have to do it. So like I was never like one of these practicing, gung ho fucking Jesus is everything type of person.
Did you ever go to like youth nights just to hang out with people? Because I did.
I went with my friends. Like they were going to churches, and they were like, "Let's go on Sunday or on Wednesday." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because there's free fucking cookies." So we'd go get free cookies.
Yeah.
And pretty much it. So.
Free food. But I went to a Baptist one with like friends in 9th and 10th grade. My dad used to take me and my friend Trevor to Doctors Creek Baptist Church in Walterboro. And there was just like some girls that we were friends with there that we would go and hang out with, and we would bring other people there. And then in like senior year of high school, I made friends with the private school kids, and they went to an Episcopal church, and it was nice. It was really nice, you know, and I love like really nice churches. Something about them I just really like, you know, and usually because they have a lot of cool shit, a lot of cool programs and stuff. But I only grew up going to church like around Christmas when we would visit grandparents. They'd go to some service, or Easter, and we'd bring church clothes with us, and we'd wear them, and you know, it'd be the only time you ever seen us really ever dress it up at all. Not even, we didn't even grow up like with suits. Like in our family, the only suit you ever really own is a pair of Class A's, because we're all, for every male is a soldier, and it will probably never end. You know, Dean will probably be in the Space Force or something, you know. And yeah, so we're definitely more of like a military family. There wasn't a lot of, so when your dad's only home for 2 days a week because he's out in the field all the time, you know, you don't go to church. You hang out at home, and while dad's doing workouts on the back porch, and we're watching Lawrence of Arabia, and he's pulling out, I mean, he just a library of books. You know, he's a writer, so that's where I kind of picked up from him. And he's got way more books than I do. He writes way longer books than I like to write. I don't like that shit. I like 40, 50,000 words, and then do a series. And then if somebody finds that one book out of a series that has a cool concept. So Antonius is all old school Rome. Secundus has this thing about it. And then all the other ones have something completely different. And it's all the shit that we talk about here on the show, but it's just turned into a fictional story. So even y'all are characters. You two are actually Felix and Varro. So if anybody buys Secundus, Felix and Varro are from Iberia, and they came into the army. I won't say which ones. Both their dads worked together at sea, right? And then one of them's dad didn't come home one time. So he was adopted by the other guy's dad. And so they came into the army together, and they wind up with Secundus in Galilee. And after Secundus brings the Dane Dark Light character, the funny character, that's the fucking, he'd make you piss your pants. He just says funny stuff the whole time. He's completely out there, you know. He brings the two of y'all, and he brings everybody that has been sort of assigned a character, but doesn't go into huge detail, because I would want this book to be made into a movie, because it's so good. It's just the way that you're not expecting what happens. It comes at this whole thing from an angle you would never think of, the town of Capua, or gladiator instructors' kids. You would never think Spectralores or anything like that had anything to do with the Bible, until you read the book and you're like, oh, okay. All right. I see what you're doing here. And it's just a hell of a lot more entertaining than the Bible. So everyone knows what the Bible is. We found all the drugs, and then we found passages that we think allude to even more of them, you know, like Mark 12, Luke 6, the consecrated breads, the picking from the ends of the sown fields. You know, it could be anything. But if it's wheat or poppies or anything like that, well, you're already in that territory again. And this is the Jesus the Christ.
Yeah.
We've looked up the names, you know, what the Greek origins of the names mean, everyone else's material. You know, we've gathered it all here, and then pull a trigger, which is where we'll eventually, you know, talk a little bit more about some of the projects I want to work on. And I want to look up some cameras. And Gnostic gave me some references for some cameras. Chase, you're a movie director, so you know a little bit about the cameras from at least back in college, the ones that you had experience with, you know.
Well, yeah, you really want to get something that fits your needs, as opposed to, I think I talked to you about that, all the bells and whistles. Like, it's like getting a Ferrari and you're looking to commute to work. You know what I mean? You don't need that Ferrari for that function.
You get a Ferrari, but
you can be sold on it.
Yeah, you need a Subaru for this. You need a truck because you're carrying a bill of hay.
Yeah, the camera don't make the content good. I'll tell you that. But it's good to have, you know, if you have a nice camera, like, and you can utilize it for certain things, that's good. But otherwise, you know, spend a buttload of money for an operation or not, something that might cost a lot of energy and time to like operate, but you're only taping yourself or something like that. And the sensors today are insane. Like the sensor on my phone right now is absolutely bonkers to me. So yeah, you really just want to think what you want to use it for and then max out that direction.
No, we're
And
doing it.
yeah,
We're just doing it. I like to do hard shit, and I will fund things. I will purchase cameras. I will pay for people to have a week off of work so they can come here and direct the first episode, pilot, whatever. It's happening. So as long as everybody's willing, we have a lot of material here. We have 2 scripts already, one from you, one from me. But we don't need to even break that open too much. But that's definitely, I am at the point now where we've brought so many topics up, and everybody else has as well, and also in the chats and in every channel, that we've seen every episode for years on end, at least for a time, until it started getting repetitive. Like, I don't know how many thumbnails with Richard Carrier's face on it Myth Vision's got. It's got to be 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's all, like, we're in that trend's dying down hopefully soon. But yeah, that's like a marketing trend.
Oh. So where were we though? We were talking about Cyprus, and then
hang on, guys. I want to laugh a little bit. So I'm going to read you guys a chapter from Song of Solomon. It's chapter 7.
Okay.
And this is believed to be Solomon speaking. Okay. King
Chapter
Solomon
7.
Speaking. Chapter 7. I'm going to read it to you. I'm just going to read the ESV version. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. So he's talking to his daughter, okay? Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Your navel is rounded, is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Your 2 breasts are like 2 fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools of Heshbon by the gate of Bath Reba. Your nose is like a tower. It's funny, the nose, right? Because they're Jewish. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks towards Damascus. Your head crowns like you like caramel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. How beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one! With all your delights, your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I say I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the scent of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. It goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over your lips and teeth. I am my beloved, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early into the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded and whether the grape blossoms have opened and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. So you have King Solomon talking about his own daughter, her breasts, and going to have sex with her in the fields with Mandrake.
Yeah. Well, is it any different than what we're living through right now? Is it any different? Is it any different? Have you heard Trump talk about his kids? I'm not getting political. Just like go watch something. Him talking about his daughter. Fuck, man. Yeah. I don't know, man. How do you tell me you're a sex cult without telling me you're a sex cult? Anyway.
Exactly. But also
unbelievable.
Not sex cult, but incest sex cult, right?
Oh yeah. Well, the Oedipal rights, the Romans were arresting them. Sorry, it's just it's on record. That's I don't know. I have not heard that actually. Now that the more I think about that him talking about his own daughter, and I don't know how you wiggle out of that. I don't know. I don't know how you wiggle out of that. Wiggle. That's like it's like you imagine hearing that. You imagine talking about your kid like that. Holy shit! Like
it's like I mean, Borat would say.
whatever, yeah, whatever you think that person's doing, they're doing. They're doing. That was a lot of energy. It's, he had the poetic phrasing of RFK, I think. I don't know if you read some of his poetry. His harvest. So the the thing that, I don't know if, I know that feet is associated with sexual body parts. There's a real big connection there. It's not just like a metaphor or anything. It's like, yeah, it's literally in like what we're talking about and how these words were used, but also especially the context, like cultic texts, right? So everybody's arguing over, did this literally happen or not? Or is this like a metaphor, right? So these are texts that are protected, that are fought over, right? That in certain areas, in a lot of areas where Abrahamic faiths are, they uh, don't let anybody even learn how to read. And then the leaders have these. And we're arguing over whether they're literally real or a metaphor. Like, do you see how silly that sounds? Like people who dominate other people, who start wars, and I mean, like, what is something that would, if I was a ruling group like that, what is something I would harbor and prevent people from knowing, other than technology? That's exactly what we do now, isn't it? So, I mean, the idea of cultic text being either of those two things is ridiculous. Like they're operative. They're likely technology directions, whatever you want to call it, for whatever process that they're using. And like the comparison that I try to find, like analogies, right? But like imagine if we were describing a concert we went to, and we're like, the lights got dimmed down, and there was lots of people waving their hands, and then we were singing in unison, and it felt like I disappeared, and had this really great time, man. And I just like, it's like, imagine this was like texts, right? You dim down the lights, and then you have people sing, and you do all this other stuff, and then like 2,000 years from now, historians are looking at it, and it's like they're looking at it like, and this is where they gathered and believed they were worshiping a god. And then people argue over whether that god's real or not, when all I left in the text was operations and like things that were happening, things that caused like that experience. And there's like lots of like analogies you can kind of bring it to, that make the idea of arguing over whether these gods were real or not as anthropomorphized figures doesn't mean anything. If you want to argue the influence, that would be cool too, if you understood that the influence has to do with technology, like has to do with different operations, because these words could contain so much, so much, and we turn them into characters. I don't know. Is that, are you picking up what I'm putting down there?
Yeah. I mean, with the, when it comes to
it's wild
characters, do you think that let me switch camera here. Do you think it's fair to say, I was on this other show, it's an atheist debate show, and I was debating from the concept that God was real, right? And they were debating from the concept that God was not real. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, well, God is real because all the stories that we have of God, they all come from either whether you look at it from the language where it says, like the Proto-Indo-European words for like magical plant and God with the same words. And you look at how they came to be from these different mystical experiences. Oh yeah, all the stuff that they wrote about, very real for sure. It's just not like tangibly real. It's not like literal, if you will. It's like you would have to go to this other side and experience it. My only question is what if you gave a Christian some kind of entheogen for the first time, and they saw like a female god like I did?
Mm-hmm.
then what do they do? Well, they're probably going to look into it, right? And they're going to figure out, oh, that these Gnostic guys were talking about of Sophia, this female, this feminine energy, and then now all of a sudden you have a Gnostic Christian, if you will. But do you think that the plants that they used to consume is just where it all kind of came from anyway in the first place, and then just each time a culture comes along, they just sort of shifts it some? They just make it a version of them of it that they like.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could say that, like, yeah, they would make it. They would maybe adapt the technology in a certain way, but what's really important is the ones that are effective for conquering seem to be the ones that conquered, I guess, right? That kind of plagued. I would say kind of plagued the area. So like certain technologies, like if I have one process, I think we mentioned this in the last episode. If I have one operation where you're going to fast, and then we're going to disrupt your sense of everything, and then we're going to bring you to a really scary state of identity dissolution, ego death, or actual maybe physical close to death, and then I'm going to bring you back into and have you go through some physical process like walking for a long time in the dark or something, and then it's going to be a crowd of people when you come back in a very ecstatic moment, welcoming you home and blah blah blah, like that. When I'm the leader of the shaman, when you're coming back, if I get you right there when you're like you're going to rebuild your identity, and I'm able to implant a fiction in there versus empower you to let you know this feeling that you're getting is connecting. You're connecting to the universe, you're connecting to Mother Nature, and you're seeing your real power, right? Which maybe some of those plants, you do see a feminine power more often. And Ibogaine's associated with like a feminine warrior sometimes.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah. So, and then they wouldn't, they would want to outlaw that because like that's undeniable. Your experience is undeniable, and it's kind of strange. We have black box brains basically, and me and you would both have some kind of experience like that outside of ourselves, right? So I would want to take that away from you. But if I can engineer the other one, like, and then I tell you that you're saved, versus you're empowered, that creates true believers in a way that, is like kind of like how the Zoroastrians seem to have been, like not afraid to die for that cause. Also, especially if I get you on that. Yeah, so it's real powerful. If you send some people out like little ferrets, I guess, in all the different regions, and they start making their own little groups with their disciples and stuff. If you don't take care of those guys, man, pretty soon you're gonna have a whole bunch of Jared Leto's like walking around your town in the same robe, and they're gonna start taking over, telling everybody like us versus them, like we have the true way. This is the true XYZ. It's kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers almost.
Sleep with Jared Leto.
What's that?
Hold on.
Yeah,
deal breaker.
Yeah, but that would like versus like there's probably so many other. I mean, like what this cracks open too is there's so many other technologies and methods and processes of engineered transformation in different directions, like pharmacon, power of the throne, or whatever. Like, what direction are you going in versus good or bad? I mean, I don't know. You're going to engineer a gladiator, like what do you do when you engineer a bodybuilder, right? You're putting them through a series of rituals, which are like, behavior patterns and forces, or we want to effectively like create or evoke a certain state of transformation, right? So there's all different versions, but one of them or series of a certain one like can transform the identity. And that's the mystery rites, or in like a, or something associated like that.
Have you ever had a mystery rite?
What's that?
Have you ever had a mystery rite of your own? Like, have you ever gone through a psychedelic experience?
Oh yeah. What
is your favorite?
I have two favorites. One of them was like really nice right after, but the first one was really dark for a while. first one, strangely enough, is connected to all of this. And I was 28, 29, and I just got into grad school, and I was hanging out with a girl I liked, and I hadn't taken mushrooms in a while. Before that, I'd had, young mushroom experiences where you just giggle and laugh all night. And I took a chocolate that I have no idea how much was in there, but I was like, I'm not really feeling it. So I did the classic thing. I took another one, and they were super potent chocolate.
Good. Nice.
Super potent. And
I'm picking you up.
Yeah, yeah. And so then all of a sudden the curt
was about 8 because of 4-gram bar, 4-gram bar, probably 8 grams or so. Penis envy, probably.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows, man? When it kicked off, I mean, the curtain started breathing like in and out, and then all of a sudden it was just like, I don't even know when it happened, when I was like, but I had ended up on my bed in the prayer position, like hands down, like yoga, downward dog.
Yeah.
And I had been in my girlfriend was just like watching me like, what the fuck? But I'd been there for a while, and in that trip, like I had my eyes closed or whatever. I went back. It was like I panned out, or like I just pulled back, and then it was just the globe, like the world, right? And it was spinning one way. And you ever seen the Superman movie where the Earth starts spinning the other way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I started doing that like real fast, spinning backwards in time, and then it zoomed in, and then I was right in the middle of the Dark Ages, and I was just walking through all of these people that were like suffering in a really horrible way, and it was related to, they're like, kind of crying out, and like I had gone to Haiti when I was like 12 or 13 years old, and it wasn't vacation white boy Haiti. It was my dad's friend who a guide over there, and we were there for 4 days, went through the cities and the citadel and stuff. And this was before the that really terrible earthquake in like 99. And so like lots of people with deformities and beggars, and it was just wild. And they would, if you stopped in the car, they'd reach into the windows, and they want something, or they want to touch you, or, and it's just a lot of suffering, right? So I had that imagery already loaded in my head, and that came back, but in the form of all these people back in the Dark Ages who couldn't read. And I had this like really like tragic feeling inside of just like how cruel like the Dark Ages must have been, that people had intentionally like kept them from reading, and how much they couldn't explore or know about the world around them, and how much they were suffering. It was a really kind of like dark feeling, right? And then so then when I came out though, for the, I don't know, 3 to 5 days after that, I would look at people, like even my mom, and they freaked me out. Like I was looking at him, I was like, well, that's mom. I know you're mom, but you're not my mom. I had this weird unconscious feeling that that wasn't quite them. It was kind of off. And then it kind of disappeared after like maybe a week and a half or so. Kind of like then I forgot about it. Then I go to grad school. Then I go through all that crap, making the movie, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until probably my early 30s or mid 30s that I realized, after I was reading a lot about unconscious micro expressions, and then also how our bodies mirror each other without us knowing. And that's how we communicate with our eyebrows, with like everything, man. And like we all it's really, really, really wild process. In fact, it's so important. Like if you get Botox in your forehead enough, or you stretch your face to where it's not being expressive, you're not going to mirror the people around you very well. And then that chemical reaction response won't be happening in your brain as much. You actually become more and more antisocial, because we're built to kind of mirror each other and be empathetic and stuff like that. And so I realized that mushroom trip, when I came back and I didn't recognize people, at least this is what I think happened, was that I was seeing some of those people for the first time, and I didn't recognize them because they didn't line up with the projection of them I had created in my head of like who I thought my mom was, or I don't know if that makes sense or not. That I wasn't very in touch with the unconscious part of my mind, that I was living a whole bunch more
Um,
up in thinking part of my mind. And so
I
then all of a
think
sudden I was
that's
feeling,
I think that's part of it, but I think if you so how many of those types of experiences have you had?
that that was the only one where that came back and I felt uneasy for like looking at people. And it's never after other bigger trip or big trips, I didn't have that
You
feeling
see,
coming
but
back.
that actually just proved my point. So like
Okay.
I feel like when you first start having the bigger ones, it's like you get, I don't know. Now when I go on the deep ones, the big ones, it's like those types of things just slough off my brain immediately. And so I go deeper into it. And the whole thing about these archons and like the Gnostics traveling the archons and going higher and higher, I personally experienced that. It sounds like you did because you
Mm,
haven't had the same type of situation going on. Where also the way you were describing it also sounded very political, actually, in the way that
mm,
you encountered things, very high in hierarchy, um, from your mother, this mother figure and all this other thing. When I go on it now, and I've had those early on when I was first getting into it in the bigger sec, but now I don't have those. Like a lot of that just
mm.
you can feel it like cracking an egg. It just the eggshell just comes off and all that stuff goes with it. And all the dumb things that you're thinking about people and their fucking dumb emotions and all their drama, that just goes off immediately. And then you go into the void, and the void is fun because it's just creativity. And like, but I feel like it's going down. Like I feel like
Mm.
I'm going into the deep waters to find that, right? Instead of going up, which is different than the Gnostic thing. And I like my saying, you know how the Gnostic, what is it, as above, so
As above,
below.
so below. Yeah.
I actually think it's the other way. I think as below, so above, because everything came from below, right?
Right.
And that's why in some cultures the serpent is worshipped because they can go underground and do things. And
Yeah.
primordial waters are underground. But anyway, aside from that, um, so what is your like if you go on a similar dose session today, what would that look like for you?
Oh, I'd have to measure it out. I'd be a lot smarter. I mean, the last one that was pretty big, I think I told the Artemis story where there was like a real sexy bear. It was huge. And she was chasing me, and I was terrified. And I'm running, trying to climb up a tree. She knocks it down. I'm going through different rooms, just bulldozing through everything. And then I just got to a point where I said, you know what? Like, screw it. Like, doesn't, I don't know if it doesn't matter, but I'm done running, right? And when I turned around to face her, she got real close to me and stopped and then hugged me. And then I felt really warm and comforted. I went from completely terrorized to completely comforted. And then it was just like a really nice, like I'm just being held by some mother figure or something. It was wild. And then,
What
yeah, and it
substance
wasn't
was
until
that on?
that was, uh, that was mushrooms mostly. Um, there might have been a little bit of LSD, but I think it was mostly mushrooms. It was kind of like it was a kind of a strange night, and I had been working all day out in the sun and stuff. Like, so I don't. Yeah, it was wild, but it was months later. I don't know, like that. I was on a chat, and someone's like, "Artemis, you met Artemis," and I was like, "What? What are they talking about?" And then I looked it up, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, that exact dynamic apparently has been written about something to do
So
with mother of the
what
hunt,
is
nature, facing nature. She is like kind of like if you turn and face her, she's not as bad, but if you keep running, she'll hunt you
yes.
into, like into death or I don't know,
I've
something.
encountered the same and actually on my bomber ayahuasca trip there was about 40 minutes of it was her. But how do you describe her? Because other people call her goddess, and the impression that I got from her was It was like yours, where it was like more. It wasn't like it was a fear thing, but I saw her on a chariot with a whip, and she
Oh,
was
Medea
yelling.
style. Damn.
She was yelling at me, "I will expose you." And paused for a minute, and I looked at her and I said, "Fuck you, bitch! I'll expose you." And as soon as I said that, she fucking rode her little chariot and fucking took off, and I never seen her again.
Damn, that's wild, dude. And yeah, man,
Yeah,
you see like fire chariots and like a lot of or like written down and stuff. That's wild, dude.
I wanted to see the demons once, and I
that
was
was
like,
a demon one. She was like a demon. Yeah, she was like that. But the other ones that you saw, like the purple, like you saw the purple goddess before Witch Doctor, and I talked about it. But the
African.
impression I get from them is like not they're the creator, but they just are a creator in general. Like I've never looked at them like worship this bitch. I was just like, oh, so you're a creator. That's your personality. Like that's what I understand about you. I see that, right? Like when I saw the purple chick, she was like in this weird spacecraft, like, and then she like somehow melded and melted into my brain cavity, and I could just, and she was just there, and I felt like she was a part of me.
Yeah,
And then I never saw her like this divine entity. I just saw her as like a creator figure. Like that's what she wanted to do. She just wanted to create shit, you know?
I think my brain um made her look the way that she did based off of the stuff that I already believed. So like the fact that she was African, and she looked like she was from the Anad tribe in South Africa, the ones that look kind of Asian, but they look like every single culture mixed together. Because why would God look like that, right? And then female, because female is the only thing that birth things. So like in my head, I wouldn't be a guy because everything's born from, what I'm saying, like it's all like a creation, seems like a birthing in a way in my brain. So
Yeah.
but I did see Jesus once before, but Jesus was dressing like a chick, so
Well, that worked out.
threw me off. Yeah, right. Well, then I ran across all that stuff and it was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Well, so imagine the way we're describing this, like if I told a story about the the bear lady, except I had like a way to get back to that experience, right? I'm like, you got to work all day in the sun, and then you take a little bit of this, and then you take a little bit of that, then you put yourself in a certain room, and you know, you experience that, and imagine that was like I wrote all of that down, but my language is pretty complex, so it takes like 2 or 3 words. And then like 2,000 years from now, someone makes up a name and they're like bear lady.
man, bear, pig.
And it becomes a man, bear, pig. It becomes a character. And then people start arguing over whether that character was real or not, and whether, I don't know, different parts. If some of those other parts are broken up, it was a metaphor or a parable for something. When I was just describing an operation that led to a certain direction, I'm not saying every one of them leads to a specific figure, but do you see kind of what I'm hinting at? That like, or at least like I think it's hard. I think it's hard for a lot of people to
I mean, you could
conceptualize.
just be even more upfront as the Jews were. You couldn't see him unless you were in the Holy of Holies, and you were filled. That room was filled with incense. Like it doesn't get any more clearer than that, right? I mean, when people don't want to admit the drug aspect of divination. I mean, where did Jesus literally go and say that he was going when he said, I want to be close to the Father? He went to the fucking temple, right? He went to the Holy of Holies to be with the Father. And what do they do at the Holy of Holies? They do incense and they do all that. So it's just very clear. I mean, even
that's what the temples are built for too. Like think about those temples, or even how the Catholic temples, or what do you want to, what I don't know, halls and mega churches. Like physiologically, it hits all the buttons, right? If you get a big crowd in there, like I've been to quite a few like Hell House / big faith healing Pentecostal, whatever you want to call it, stuff like back in like
shit.
97, 98, something like that. I was a little kid, like, and holy crap, man, like you feel it. It's wild. Just the energy in the room, just the energy of that many people together. And I don't mean just, I mean, I think it's pretty incredible that we do that as a species. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and you kind of disappear into that, and people carrying all of their, I mean, I don't know, burdens or guilt or all of that, and then you're able to release them or let go of them in what you'd call like a religious experience. I mean, that's just where the majority of the people are sober. And I mean, no doubt if you took like a screenshot of their like bloodstream, there'd be a whole bunch of pharmacon in there coming out of their brain, like having that kind of experience. You know what I mean? And now imagine that it's filled with incense and it's filled with other stuff, and it's like an EDM festival, except it's all being directed in one specific direction. That's wild, dude. Wild.
So I have frankincense and myrrh, and I started experimenting different things with it. But I wish I could have hotboxed it because that's basically what they did. But they also did it for like all day long, right? When they were sitting in there. And that was one of the directives in Jeremiah, actually. I think Jeremiah 30, where they told them how to make the incense on the altar and to burn it like literally day and night. Yes. And then there was one event that was supposed to be a bigger event, which to me was a bigger drug event that was going down. They never explained what it was, but I've done frankincense and myrrh, and it's really mind expanding. So like, it's not like weed where you get stoned, but if you put good music on, like bassy, like drum and bass or something, and you're just by yourself, like for a good hour and a half, your brain just like feels like it's expanding. And then people are like, how does it feel? It feels like your brain's like drippy. It feels very drippy and just, I don't know. It feels cool. It's not like weed, but it's more mind expansive.
That sounds interesting. Now imagine you're like in a sleep deprivation cave that lets light in at a certain time. I mean, awesome. It hits all the buttons, man. That again, it's an engineering. And some of it's brilliant. Like, I mean, the fact that they tapped into that stuff systematically and knew, we're missing out.
I wanted to read this real quick. Jeremiah 25, the directive from the Lord, as we were talking about, Chase. You mentioned, hey, what if this was just a guy that people saw and then they 2,000 years were talking about somebody's trip, essentially. But the cup of the Lord, Jeremiah 25:15, thus the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me, take from my hand this cup of the wine of wrath, and make all of the nations to whom I send you drink it. They shall drink and stagger and be crazed because of the sword that I am sending among them. The sword is the fucking drug, okay? Just like Jesus says, this two-sided blade that comes out of my mouth, that's a drug. He's talking about drug context. So when Amen says it's about Jesus doing drugs, it is, but it's even more. But the whole thing, and then after he says that, so Jeremiah's going, so I took the cup of the Lord's hand and made all the nations to whom the Lord sent me drink it. Jerusalem, the city. So he's literally making them do this. Now, if we go back and tie that into the Sibylline oracles, by the way, the Sibylline oracles are Hellenized Jews that were writing these, right? But they were doing it in a prophetic states. They're doing it in these, states of euphoria and probably utilizing things like opium and other things that were in the area to actually give these messages. So it all ties together. I mean, and these are all just reforms that took place over and over again. That's why people, when they talk about, look at the syncretism, it's not just about syncretism. It's about reform. It's about political control. It's about power. It's about centralizing, taking away from the drug context to give and achieve divination to the multiple classes that are there. But once that lower class starts doing these things and they start figuring it out, that's when the overarching control happens. They say, no, you can't do that anymore. only we can do it. We don't like the fact that you guys are doing your own thing at your house. You got to come here and do it. When you come here, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay tithing, whatever it is, and you got to recognize us as the central power. And that's really what a lot of this is about. And I think this narrative just gets looked over. You know, the fact the Maccabean revolt. What did that mean, right? And what came out of that? These are all just political reforms of power, essentially where all the divination came from, and now is being filtered through to everybody else in modern day. Is literally people reading about old like 2,000-year-old people having trips, and exactly like you just said, and making up their own story as to how that translates to morality and these other things, but they don't realize that centralized power is still the structure that is in control.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it goes back to how we were looking at the word smell. So you're like reading a translation, and there's something going on, and it's like they smelled the god or yada yada yada, right? And we go, oh, smell, like scent, like a steak, or whatever else. Like, so we immediately have like put it in an abstract world, I guess. And then we start building theories off of that smell. And like at the very foundation, the smell was about the I guess transformation of a substance into the air, and that you had inhaled that transformational god, what they would call, you know, like that's this totally different. It changes everything. And then now you have two people arguing over whether the metaphor is real or not, or if they literally did it.
Yeah.
As opposed to they're
Yeah.
giving you operations to like this is what they were doing, and they were, and so and the gods weren't they weren't putting things on altars to imagine a figure appearing. You know, that anthropomorphizing things is like, it's so hard to get it out of your head though, because our language actually I think like works like that. It's like very siloed and descriptive, and all of these other
But
things.
those are
Like,
demarcations. These are all like these. I don't really care if see people get into the weeds because they go, well, I saw a machine elf, and then another guy goes, yeah, I saw it too. Or it's like that fucking DMT call where they're looking at laser with certain symbols in it, and they go, well, I saw that too. It's not really about what you saw. It's just about that you're having the experiences overall, and how this
right.
gets how
Yes.
this
Yes.
Jewish thing gets
Yes.
back into the early Sibyls, that then the Christians, you know, it was a blueprint for Christians, but these were Hellenistic Jews that were writing these Sibyls, these oracular, but they were famous for prophesying in ecstatic states. The trance mechanics, unlike the Delphic Pythia, who reportedly breathed volcanic vapors, the Eastern Sibyls, including those associated with Cyprus and Asia Minor, were often described as being in a frenzied yet dreamlike state. And these dreamlike states, again, go back to the Cypriot opium, which was the primary tool for inducing
Yeah.
sacred sleep and incubation. While the later
Yes.
Jewish and Christian editors of the oracles scrubbed out the drug references to make the Sibyl seem purely inspired by the Holy Spirit, the original pagan Sibyls were part of a ritual complex that used sacred plants to loosen the soul from the body. And how do we know that? Because literally Cyprus made a claim on the Etherian Sibyl. This was a famous Sibyl in the sacred grotto. These Sibyls lived in caves and grottos, which were the traditional offices, if you will, of the mother goddess. As we've seen, these grottos and tombs were the primary sites where Cypriot merchants left their poppy jugs. In the ritual continuity, the act of entering a cave to receive a vision was often accompanied by drink incubation, so sensory deprivation. To facilitate this, the petitioner of the Sibyl or the Sibyl would consume a sacred drink or breathe the smoke of a specific herb. Given that Cyprus was the world's leading exporter of ritual opium, it is highly likely that this Cypriot Sibyl utilized the local technology to achieve the prophetic state. So the hidden botany in the text. So they didn't outright say they were using these things, but the cup of staggering was mentioned, right? In the book of Isaiah, the oracles frequently warn nations that they will drink the cup of madness or staggering. This is the linguistic fossil of the actual ritual drink used in the Mediterranean mystery. The deep sleep of nation, the oracles often describe the fall of empires as a heavy sleep falling upon the people. This is a direct play on the sleep of the goddess, a concept the Cypriots understood through the physical effects of the poppy. So this is how this all ties into it. It's prophetic divination, and you have even people like Plutarch saying it, that if it doesn't come likened from a drug, then it's not real, then it's not a real prophecy. And this is carried through, but through reform, you end up with Christianity as this political movement. As we read about in the books, it's more communist than anything else, although they don't do that. They use the message of communism where Judas Iscariot calls out Jesus. Why? Because Jesus took a whole bunch of spikenard, as we talked before, and used 300 denarii worth of it on himself. And Judas Iscariot, after listening to Jesus preach all this cool stuff, said, well, why didn't you sell it and give the money to the poor if you're such a fucking, fantastic person, right?
Right.
And he called him out because this is where you start seeing maybe maybe Judas was the Jew, right? Maybe Judas was the beginning of these reforms in another way, where you could probably make that argument. If Judas is talking shit to Jesus, why is he doing it? Is he really calling him out for using the nard on his feet and saying, you know what, maybe you're addicted to this stuff, and maybe it's better that we sell it and give it to poor. Maybe that's the moral high ground that he was trying to take. So maybe Jesus created his own enemy, right? Maybe Jesus was the person that killed the drug ritual during the early Christian movement, right? With Judas and others. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, the opium's everywhere. I mean, I think that definitely deserves its own uh like shout out. The recent movie 28 Years Later, Bone Temple, they did a good job kind of like placing that process in there when the Ralph Fiennes character is like figuring out some kind of concoction to like mess with the virus, and he kind of stumbles onto the idea that this big alpha zombie, whatever it is, rage monster, um, is suffering or something, so it gives him some opium and some kind of concoction, and then over time he's giving him this opium over and over again, and then he's like just hanging out with him, and it starts to actually bring him back, or transform him into something that I guess is more human and stuff. And so there's something really powerful that seems very Promethean. And I think they put that there on purpose. But humans' connection to opium is crazy. You know what I mean? And like the power that could wield, the good and the bad, but there's a lot of good that comes with it, man. If you can suffer through things that others can't, or relax your nervous system during severe times of panic, and then, yeah, and then you stack that with other processes that you're going to push the body in extreme directions. I mean, that's like no wonder it's everywhere. No wonder. And then, like, what in the priestly classes, it's in lower volumes and higher potency. So that kind of like has its own thing, and it would be obviously like desirable. I mean, we have the receptors for it in our head. We have the receptors for all of this stuff in our head, which is like starting that all of the stuff we're talking about is answering that question. Like, why do we have all these receptors in our head? It's like, I guess we were the humans that made it, you know?
I think I
But
think what it does
also it
though, and
doesn't
not
kill
to
us, right? It will, if you take too much of it, your lungs, your respiratory system will go down. But as far as like a controlled version of it, heroin addicts don't come out. I mean, if they're getting clean heroin all the time and taking care of themselves, they don't come out unhealthy. It's really strange. You know what I mean? But what's like, you see the people on the street, that's usually related to the context of their environment. Obviously, I wouldn't suggest anybody go out and do heroin at all. But, those things that screw them up is usually things that are spiked with other things, and or their lifestyle and just wasting away, because they're on it or because they're doing everything they can to get it. And but it's not the substance itself, which is just wild. You can't say that about alcohol. Alcohol poisons the hell out of everything. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I know what you mean. I've known of different people who have had opioid addictions that I guess you could say were very comparable to heroin, you know, and they've even said that nicotine is harder to quit than even heroin, not just opioids, but even heroin. So,
wow.
yeah, you're right. People that are on the streets, they are subject to a lot of other things, and there's usually health problems also stacked on top of.
Yeah. I would never say it's a good thing. I'm just, physiologically, like alcohol poisons, like our bodies cannot process alcohol. It's poison completely to a pretty high degree. But in a controlled environment, you know, and at certain doses, our bodies take on that opium, and like the body in general is intact. I guess that, if that makes sense. So there's something fascinating about that.
But if the drugs, if we look at the research, like let's just take psilocybin, right? It actually creates a more present human in reality. And we know that through multiple studies. One would be, you know, Roland Fisher, as I always mention. But what if it's sloughing off? It's basically inhibiting some of the brain activity and also unlocking some of the theta waves during the wake and dream state, essentially. But what if that taps you into the broader holistic universe, right? Into this shared collective experience. This is really what's probably going on. However, and we know that through fMRI scans, brain scans, and different regions of the brains being active during this, and we know that through years and years of analysis and studies. So if that's happening, then it was always about control. Because they took this divination and these experience and they just politicized it into this form of thing called religion. And so we're all these people, not you and I, but people on YouTube and others are always sitting here debating religion and these things that is really far off into the weeds. And the real discussion that should be had is hands off. Hands off people having experience, and hands off people having experiences and trying to make fucking rules out of it. Rules and laws for other people to live by. Because that's what happened. If we're going to be real students and stewards of this activity, which I would call the mystery, because I know other people call the mystery an organization of how you do these things, and I don't, because I don't think it matters. I think if you have a modern time guy doing 5 grams in total complete darkness, he could totally have the same experience. And I know he does, because the trips are almost the same as we just discussed. Oh, yeah. They see similar entities, yada, yada, yada. You don't have to walk backwards from the river naked 200 feet, put a fucking robe on.
Yeah. But they're stacking.
By the beach.
They're stacking. Imagine you're having that experience with the mushrooms, and then I stack like 5 or 6 other things on top of that. And
I don't think it's
engineer it precisely.
More divination, though. I don't think it's.
Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but
I think it's just enhancing the experience. I don't think it's. I don't, because if it were, you would have more transformative culture and cult, and I just didn't. I haven't seen that in the record anywhere.
Well, look how powerful the Abrahamic faiths have been on the influence of everything. And when you look at all the snake connections, which I'm still doing my best to see what I can pull out of it, that is not like a ton of speculation, but man, Medea sure was known as being a very skilled operator that transformed people in a specific direction. So it would be a really powerful thing to try to figure out, to basically transform people into, people that follow you completely and devote their lives to you. Like that would make sense if they took that power, or took that technology, whatever you want to call it, created their own kind of version and created a controlled transformation. So I see what you're saying, but like yeah, and what if they figured out how to do it with the substances, like
It was a
even
priestly
milder?
caste. All of these cults are run by priestly castes in a hierarchy. So I don't care
Mhm.
who you are from a standard political view. I mean, I'm not going to get too political on this, but it doesn't mean that I don't read politics. And I will say that a good example of some of this stuff, these cults, and then springing off other cults and springing off the people that didn't like them, was actually created by them in the first place. So, like the modern day MAGA movement was literally created by the modern liberal left. And if you don't know that, then you don't follow politics at all.
Well, there's
And
also a lot
so,
of psyop things
but
like
let's
intentional. We're
just
all in Plato's cave. You know what I mean?
Jews. Let's just focus on Jews. Let's just look at the Abrahamic faith. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's no physical evidence that these people were even real, right?
Yeah. No, they're
And so
cultic type.
that was you want to have the original sin and the original lie. That was it, is that these people were actually real things and they created all of these religions out of it. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
it,
Yeah. That's
it
definitely.
Plato's cave to an extent, you can use that, but I would say at the end of the day, it's how we think in the method. And the same method of deduction and quote unquote Aristotelian logic, if you actually go look at what that is, deduction and induction, you will say this is not good, because literally the same scientific method is Aristotelian deduction, but so is theology, right? And so people say the evidence is that, well, there was 500 witnesses that saw Jesus come out of a tomb. Well, who are they? We don't know. We don't even know one of the 500's name. So at the end of the day, nobody saw them, right? No, well, we say that because it's written here, so that's our evidence, and that's good
Mhm,
enough for them, because
mhm,
Aristotelian deduction is basically, if there's an overall consensus, then it must be true.
mhm.
That's
Well,
that's the leap of faith assumption, my friend, and that's
yeah.
Aristotelian logic.
Well, so what if that process of XYZ number of people uh, saw him come out of the tomb? What if we're reading that wrong and using our language to describe what they were saying, and what they might have been saying is something of an operation, a part of a ritual, or an actual symbolic, right? Remember I talked about how they actually thought of the word symbol, like that, like like it's just like a film, like as a film, as a medium, not as what you want to add into it, but a film by itself playing in an empty forest with no humans around, you know, these are objects, it's one part of the puzzle, and then the person who's watching it is the other part, and when that experience that's evoked between them, that's the symbolic representation, right? And or the symbol forming, and it happens in a general direction when it's done right. um, the same general experience. So when we all watch a love story, how do we all know it's a love story, right? It's not inherently that. It's just juxtaposed images filmed at different times, um, and in different, stitched together in different ways with music and stuff that only like fits, but it fits with in a universal way where we all experience that. Does that make sense? And so, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if
I
that's
mean, it
like
makes sense, but
clicking.
it's still a hierarchy. Like, you're still saying, this is the cult, come here and do this. Like, we see how
Sure.
stupid it gets with Saint Hildegard, when Saint Hildegard writes in her own book that if you don't have mandrake and you don't have the psychoactive, you can substitute beech nut. And like, we all know there's nothing psychoactive about beech nut. So you have, like, picture in your head, Chase, that if you're in this
Hmm.
cult and they're telling you, like, yeah, here, this is what we're doing, and this is the prayer we want you to say, this is the thing, and we want you to consume psychoactives and be close to God. But if you don't have them, still do this, but
Right.
do it with something like a stick. And like, so you have people in the woods going, yeah, and doing whatever the fuck they do and saying their prayer. but literally nothing happens.
Without it.
There's no divination.
Mhm.
Like, to me, that's just fugazi. That's just like, and then the other part is like, why would anybody be behind anybody that's a purveyor of the mystery of the practice of the plant and somebody that wants to bolster the plant and the message of the plant to anybody else to use, because that's the message I get from the plants. I feel like I'm almost like I'm just being used by the mushroom in some way to actually tell the story so other people can experience it for themselves.
Mhm.
Well, why would I go out and say, yeah, but you can do this, but you have to do it this way, and you have to do it on this day, and you have to do it this time, and you have to say this, and you have to walk like this, and you have to wear this. Why the fuck would I say that?
Mhm.
I would never do that.
Well, that's why I outlaw it and throw you in jail, bro. Think about it.
But that's what they're doing,
I know. That's what that's the kind of the power of it. Yeah, but yeah, it throws everything through a loop, or like a kind of, I don't know, exposes the inversion when you start like realizing that
The priestly
like you're
class
arguing,
started.
we're arguing over like, but people are having these, not you, but like people are having, the world in general are having these debates as to whether they're a metaphor or whether these things actually happened. And in
Well, we know they
reality,
did. We
there,
found the evidence.
no,
We have the
no,
physical evidence.
no, I'm saying the reality of the cultic text is they are describing a operative process, the part that you follow, and then that experience creates that, right?
But I'll
So
give you an
so
out. I'm
there
gonna
is
give you
no
an
that,
out.
it's like a fake dynamic that we're even, that like, not me and you again, but in general when you're talking to people and historians even and all that, and like people that just add more and more parables and metaphors and whatever to it, that at the very beginning they're making these metaphors and all these arguments and whatever over something of
Lay it out
them
very
giving
simple
them an
for you.
operation to do.
I'm gonna lay it out very simple for you. So the
Hmm.
Cypriots, which I'm not a fan of, by the way, just because I'm explaining where Judaism and Christianity came from, doesn't mean I'm a fan of them. And the
Oh yeah,
reason
yeah.
I'm not a fan is because we learned it also when they spread it to the Greeks and the Egyptians. Because what did the Egyptians do? They modeled the Cypriot. They started to cultivate their own oak poppy and make
Hmm.
their own and sell it and also import and export their own religion with it.
Hmm.
Well, what is that religion exactly? It's about money, cultivation of a product, selling a
Hmm.
religion to other people and imposing
Yes.
that religion on other people, and
Yep.
ultimately about power, money, and control. It's about a priestly caste of fucking assholes.
Yes.
I'm in
Tyrants.
favor of the plants. I'm not in favor of any of these cults. None of them. Fuck them
Right.
all. That's why people don't really care for me, because I don't know, we talk in Greek circles and people are like, "Oh, I'm about this and that." Go do that. I'm not telling you not to, but I'm not
Hmm.
a fan of it. And this is why. It's because
Yep.
they're all priestly casts of people that want to control the substance, control the narrative.
Yes.
And then a lot of them were like hiding it, keeping it a secret, and the fluffy,
Why?
feel good,
Okay.
warm
Look,
story. No, but the
we're
feel
getting.
good, warm story is bullshit, because
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
literally child sacrifices to Moloch and Baal, and in
Hmm.
other cults very similar. So it wasn't this fuzzy feel good like the shamans know how much to take and not to take. Yeah, they do. But at the end of the day, they didn't say shit and they didn't stop nobody. When they imported the Cypriot opium, you don't think the Cypriots looked at those fuckers at Gezer and said, "Why are you killing your own fucking kid?" They could have,
Yeah.
but they didn't.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying how all the stories of the gods in general are operating, how they're actually working. And that doesn't mean they're like, I agree or say we should bring them back. I am fascinated by the different things they like figured out. But yeah, that would be, I think that would be like the point, and the fact that they're hiding it. I'd be curious to see if there is something related to the idea that oracles would call out tyrants, and at certain times, if a tyrant was called out, they'd go get them. So you
I
start
think even an
figuring out
oracle is a
ways to
tyrant.
tyrannically, maybe, yeah, there probably was corrupt ones and stuff like that.
I think that what I encountered on my ayahuasca trip was that, and me
Could have
standing
been.
up to ultimate authority and other
Hmm.
people looking up to this person like they're an ultimate authority, and me finally saying "fuck you."
Hmm.
And I was
Oh,
glad when I came
yeah.
down from that, and I said I'm happy that that was my reaction to it.
Yeah, well, that would
Be-
be like the idea that an oracle would see someone doing this types of processes that were tyrannical, greed, all those things you described, and they call it on go fuck you, and they go
No,
after
but
them.
the act of the oracle itself, the idea of even having a centralized figure that literally every Greek god, if you read the myth of those stories that goes back, the gods go see that particular fucking oracle and she's doing the vapors and the drugs, and then she has a prophecy and
Hmm.
she tells that god what to do. That's
Hmm.
bullshit. That's hierarchy, my guy. I'm in favor of having people control their own destiny.
Hmm.
No gods, no cults, nothing. Live your own life, be your own purveyor of this knowledge and your own experience. Fuck having to go somewhere to centralize it. Fuck having to go somewhere to get it. And fuck
Hmm.
having somebody in control. I'm not a big fan of that.
No, yeah, uh, no, I agree. I'm not a fan of it either. Um, but it
I mean,
is
you
like
can
a
be.
ebb and
If you want to
it's
be,
an
that's fine. I'm just saying
no,
that's my
no, no.
own
It's an
view of
ebb
it.
and I'm just saying it's the ebb and flow of like the nature we're a part of, right? So that the balances that happen, like that balance versus the tyrannical balance, and it's always like this push back and forth, I guess, right? So I agree with you though. Like that would be
That's why you've
really
never
cool to
had.
figure something
That's
like
why
that.
you've never. This is why you've never had, as Terrence McKenna talked about, you never had a class of shaman because it was controlled. It was
Right?
always state controlled. This is why, even in the ancient culture. So when people go, we need
Yeah,
to bring
yeah, yeah,
back
sure.
fucking Prometheus and all this shit. No, we don't. We fucking don't.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be in favor of that. I'm just more. I'm in favor of actually digging into uh, all of these stories, all of these myths, and discovering what they were actually doing, and just like that was that was a lot of knowledge that was preserved. That was what was passed down. This technology operations to certain families that wanted to remain in power. Um, and what did they know that we don't know now? What can we learn from it? But not in some kind of naive hero worship way or something like that. Like, oh, we'll bring this back and this will save us. It's like that sounds like a bad idea on how to view it. But there's so much knowledge out there that is right underneath our noses. And then also, like, I'd just be interested in general, how many other texts can we dig up that are not talked about? I mean, obviously there's a lot missing. And like, what don't we know about the people we come from in general? Like,
Isn't it
I'm just interested
ironic
in
that
discovering.
Isn't it ironic that the only way you can feel holistic by having an ego trip is through a priestly cast of individuals? That's
Oh
just
yeah, I don't.
stupid.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, no, yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter if it's
So
Egyptian
silly.
gods or temples or ritual, or if it's a Greek god temple or ritual. It doesn't matter. It's the same stuff to me. And I just think that
Yeah,
it's always been a mechanism of money, power, control,
yeah,
trade,
yeah,
maritimism, transferring of wealth, reform, and opportunities for other people to come into political power.
yeah.
And unfortunately, that's why other religions sprang out. Why do you think Nicholas was like, I want to be a deacon? because he was smart enough to understand that this is how it was going to happen for him, that he could become one of these priestly class himself and obtain power if he signed up to be one. These guys, it's like Carl Jung. People bring up Carl Jung was smart enough to see the void. He was dumb enough never to experience the void.
Did you read the Red Book? Well, I didn't read the whole thing, but that one's really trippy. It's the one he didn't publish.
But I watched his interview about Huxley, and his initial reaction to Aldous Huxley was that he disagreed with him. He first disagreed with Aldous Huxley, saying that he didn't think psychedelics could basically individuate somebody. Then he came back and said, well, I think actually it can, but there is some warning that somebody needs to have when you're... See, it's a fear-based system. That's why these priestly castes form in the first place. It's fear. And then it's, oh, well, we can tell people who can and can't take it. That means we can control it.
Right. Except when you uphold liberty, right? Which is the freedom to experience your own personal divinity as a human, like that, as a kind of, and then law and order gets built around it, right? It's not perfect at all, but that was a safeguard mechanism, I think. Sounds
so
like
I don't know.
That's what that's like. What you're describing to me is exactly what I feel as well. Like that, it's not. Who are you to go tell someone how to experience the cosmos, and this is the right way, and that you should just do that, and then listen to me? You know,
if you're going to have a completely, entirely holistic experience where you tap into everything that's going on in the universe at one time in your own individualistic mind, how are you going to do that following a fucking cult?
Oh, right. Yeah,
it doesn't matter if it's the cult of Medea or the cult of Adonis. You're following these certain spiritual pathways that some guy at the top says this is how it has to be. And your expectations in that cult is to have divination that's very similar, to do the ritual very similar, and to not follow the teachings and practices of other people. So I don't buy it. I don't think that we should. I think that we're going into a new direction now where we're not, like, we're coming into a weird time where big pharma is a problem politically because they want to own, like, psilocybin, for example. They're trying to use it for schizophrenic and things like that, but without them getting the high from it. So that's a problem. But that's also another form of hierarchy, right? Then you have, and then the legality of it, right? Where some churches want to do it. You have some churches like the one I'm in that say do it. But again, it's a hierarchy. Like, do you think I want to have to sign up through a church in order to have the ability to fucking do psychedelics? Fuck no. Nobody should have to do that. Like, we should live in an open, free society where people want to explore these things, they can. And whatever experiences they have, that's what we should share. It shouldn't be like, well, you have to go here on the third Sunday of the equinox, and you have to wait in a cave for 3 nights. And then when the cave light comes in, then you can eat a couple grams, and then you can go outside and walk naked to the river, take your robe off, and go in and purify yourself and come out clean.
Oh yeah. Still silly,
Like, I mean,
like
if
to
you
think that
wanna
that's what
do
you're supposed to do for everything. Yeah.
If you want to do it, do it. I just see a massive issue with that because I just see it as control. I see it, and they might not think
It is.
that's what's happening. But
No, but it is. Yeah, of course it is. That is the operative text. That is the technology. That is the power. That is why they would hide it and why they would wield it and why they would keep people from reading and why they would cut them off from other medicines, and why they would rewrite their history so they could wield that power, right? Because it can't exist out in a free liberty-based place. It will get eaten by people like you or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it gets picked apart.
Savages like me. Yeah.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah. No, it's true though. There's like a thing there that, like, I think it's real, and that's why. And if I cut off your medicine, your education, and then your history, you're going to be a little less difficult to deal with. There'll always be people that pop up, and then I deal with them. But I mean, that seems like a very good way to control the narrative. A very good way to create dark ages. And the dark ages are dark for the people at the bottom. You know, I don't know, man. It's just like it was the Great Depression, you know, and it's like not for everybody. Like some of them were having a crazy, you know, nihilistic blow up everything time, you know. So, which
I
you
hate
know,
to
I don't
interrupt.
like.
I hate to interrupt what we're doing, but I have a little goat that we are taking care of, and she's in the living room right now, and she's doing okay. But I've had to go back and forth and stuff. But
We're
I
good.
I'm
Yeah,
Yeah,
exhausted.
we're on
So
the line, man. Take
it's
care.
been one of
Go
the. I
take
had
care of your
both
goat,
babies
dude.
today,
yeah,
milking
yeah, yeah.
Steve, milking the goat, milking Steve, milking the goat. And yeah, it's been a wild day for sure. But we'll go live again soon, and we'll get.
Yeah.
It's funny, we have more people watching now than we did like like an hour ago. But
Yeah.
the longer you stay on, it starts to put it in front of people's faces and more and whatnot. But hey, real quick before we go, Tiger Shark, you got any last words? And then I'll do Chase, and then we'll roll.
Yeah, if you haven't read Witch Doctor's books, go order them on Amazon.
Secundos. Hell yeah, thanks, man. You Chase?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm communicating effectively or not about a lot of the stuff that we're all circling and kind of what it points to. But I hope it's getting through, hopefully, to people smarter than me one day that, yeah, can properly put these cultic texts in their place. And yeah, the more armed you are with this stuff, I think the less likely you can go down paths you don't want to go down, or waste your time in relativistic arguments that go nowhere with like who's got the higher vocabulary and kind
Right.
of like, you know, false
Well,
dualistic type debate.
I've noticed in this world, the pseudo theology world, a lot of people they don't get along that well. But I think YouTube's kind of what's happened is that everything in YouTube has to be shocking or catch your attention, all this stuff, and things trend a certain way or whatever. And I think people get a little caught up with certain individuals for a really long time. They read a certain book, and that's all they regurgitate for the longest time is like just that information from that one book they read. And it's not that they haven't read other books. It's just some people have this sort of broken record effect. I've seen it in the chats and stuff, and I'm just like, all right. It's a lot for sure. But I appreciate everybody that stopped by and everybody that watches in the future. If you made it all the way to the end, just because I know how people are, they watch it for a little while and they shut it off and they don't ever finish it or whatever. I really appreciate it for sure. And hopefully you got something out of this. We talked a lot about a lot of different topics, honestly. So it's hard to just list them off right now. But anyway, we'll see you soon and take care. We'll see y'all.
Wait.
Yes.
Later.
If I know where the button is, let's all freeze like in